All right. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Ward Radio live stream. I am your host, Cardinellis. Today, I'm joined in the studio by Michael Peterson, whatever we're going to call you, researcher, entrepreneur, writer of the internet, as well as via Zoom by a killer cast, none other than Jonah Barnes, the associate professor of all things apocryphal, Brad Whitbeck, OG Midnight Mormon / Ward Radio, gangsta. And then gangsta, Brad Whitbeck, the gangsta. That's awesome. I love that. We should start using that instead of associate apostle of all future.
G, right? Is that what it is?
Yes, exactly. B-Rad G, as well as Luke Hansen, the editor-in-chief of Ward Radio News. Awesome. So today we've got a really interesting topic. I knew we were going to be talking the CES letter for Thursday's live stream, but Jonah informed me here just 2 or 3 hours ago. He's always been referring to you as when you're in the studio. I thought, what is this, some kind of Zoom link? I had no idea you would be driving from Salt Lake City in order to come to the Ward Radio Wigwam and tell us what you have come up with. Your research has been making a lot of waves online, and you say you've got the receipts. For anybody that is familiar with this is all I'll say. For anybody that's new to our podcast or our live stream, similar to how in the 1930s, the bad mustache man wrote Mein Kampf, meaning my struggle, which basically kind of inspired an entire generation of anti-Semitism and rhetoric against, unfortunately, our Jewish brothers and sisters, and created a whole new brand of anti-Mormonism. There's this guy named Jeremy Runnels who wrote the CES letter sometime back in 2014 or 2015 that was... it was
2013.
2013, yeah. It was under the guise of... my struggles to get answers to the truth claims of the church. But obviously, similar to how Mein Kampf wasn't necessarily a struggle, but an inspiration for the worst amongst us. Unfortunately, the Jeremy Runnels struggle kind of launched a whole new generation of anti-Mormons that use it to justify their cruelty and their rhetoric and so on and so forth. Now, fortunately, the U.S. Constitution protects us from, what I'm saying, doing to us what they did to them. But nevertheless, a lot of families have been interrupted by this. A lot of people have used it as a justification, frankly, for just cruel hypocrisy. And so we've gone to great lengths to debunk the content of this. And now I heard that you have gone to greater lengths, apparently, to talk about the very origin of the story of the CES letter. And this is why you're here today. Jonah says it all checks out, which is kind of interesting to me. So that perked my ears up. So we're gonna have
again. I read the Gnostic Apocrypha, so I don't know if I'm an authority on what's true.
Yeah, that's true. Now
I think Cain was Bigfoot. So
Yeah, rock on. Exactly. Now,
Jonah,
before
you don't think that
I'm not hearing him very well.
Yeah,
it is the basis of your testimony.
Yeah. So, anyway, before we get started, though, as people are coming in, I just want you to know if you have any questions, please make sure you send them to us via Super Chat. We do our best to read all of the appropriate questions as long as they are germane to the conversation and so on and so forth. Also, if you haven't liked the stream yet, please like the stream and subscribe to our channel. And guys, I put this in the Discord, but the audience is going to see it for the first time. I met Michael Peterson only for the first time about an hour ago. And I said, yo, bro. He came looking like this on the left, but I said we're gonna deck you out with some merch.
Dote him up.
So yeah, yes. we just decked up Senor Michael Peterson here with a bunch of Ward Radio merch. So now he is large and in charge, sporting the Ward Radio Tower. And let us know what you guys think in the comments below in the chat. Should he go back to the blue shirt? Very NASA engineer, very Microsoft 1997. I'm digging the vibes. But I like how you got like the Tony Hawk researcher vibe going on now. It's cool, man. So we're glad to have you here, man. We're glad to have you here.
Great to be here.
And apparently you've got a bunch of research, if I can put it up on the screen. Yeah, you got a bunch of research that you are going to share with us. Gotta love dem slides. So anyway, before we go any farther, Brad, if you could, Brad and Jonah, if you guys could help me keep up with the chat. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of very negative comments. You might have to help get Fidget in there and get some people to take out the bad links that we should say people are inevitably going to put in, the hateful comments, the hateful rhetoric, and also maybe ennoble a couple of our moderators from Discord to be moderators of this chat as well, because I'm sure it's going to be going crazy. And also, Mary Lou Howorth has increased the membership of the Ward Radio Wigwam. Would you like to welcome the new members, Jonah, Ward Clerk Jonah?
We are thrilled to have just received the records of Brother Free Agency Absolutist, Sister Deborah G, Brother Diego Lucero, Sister Mary Nauta, Brother Andrew Kirk, and Brother Scott Pratt, and Sister Jana Hale, and Brother Aaron H, Sister Amy Lauria, and Brother Christian Clark. All those who would like to welcome these 10 new members into the Ward Radio worship, please do so by putting a W in the chat. The Ward grows day by day. Minute by minute.
Awesome. Had to handle that camera there. It was amateur hour, man. Amateur hour. So anyway, all right. Thank you very much, Mary Lou. Now, I guess, Michael, just tell us who you are, what your story is, what this research is, why it's making waves. And you guys got questions for him? Luke, Brad, Jonah, you guys got any questions, or should we just give him the floor to start out?
We're going to have questions later.
Oh, Luke. Okay.
Yeah, a brief point of business. If you could go to the Discord, Cardin.
Yes.
I just popped 2 pictures in there.
Okay.
I just wanted to show some solidarity with any fellow cat lovers out there. You know, these are difficult times for us in this political environment that we're in. So just anybody who loves cat, just know that I stand with you.
Okay, hold on. I'm trying to find browser plus reaction. Hold on. Browser window, Google Chrome. Is that what I think it is?
In the Discord?
Yes. It's a picture of looks like a chicken wing, but
other
it's
cat lovers just
is that Fifi? That's Fifi, isn't it?
Yep.
Oh, geez, brutal, man. Absolutely brutal. Okay.
Wasn't anybody's pet that I'm aware of, so I'm good there.
Well, the second picture, is that you eating it, bro?
Yes. It was my birthday, actually. My birthday dinner in Sierra Leone.
Oh, you ate a cat for your birthday in Sierra Leone on your mission?
Yep.
Nice. Did it taste kind of like goat?
Holy
I've heard it
smoke.
tastes kind of like goat.
It actually tastes more like goat than chicken, yeah. But I don't like goat. I didn't like goat that much. I did like the cat.
I love goat, man. But you did like cat. Nice.
Yeah, are you kidding me?
I did.
You are going to get so clipped. You are going to get so clipped. People are going to say, if you never thought you could trust Luke Hansen before, man, he eats cats. And then there's the picture.
Just to be clear, I'm not endorsing any internet conspiracy theories. It was just too good not to do it. So I had to
Such
do
a
it.
nerd.
That is brutal. I did have rabbit for the first time, liebre, as they say in Argentina, voluntarily on I believe it was one of my companions' birthdays, if I'm not mistaken. So what about you, Michael?
You know, for all of us eating a bunch of petroleum and microplastics all the time, I actually am starting to think that eating cat and eating rabbit doesn't sound so weird. You know what I mean?
That's true. That's true,
with
my man.
with all the chemicals that we consume all the time, it's kind of like, yeah, we could probably use a little cat in our diet every now and then. But sorry, I digress.
If there is any question that we do indeed record this live, there's your proof. The last 90 seconds have been absolute proof. Brad is literally cringing. He's like, smile and nod. I can't believe I'm associated with these people.
Oh, no, man. As an immigrant, I'm down to eat anything, I guess.
He's an immigrant.
Jeez, brutal, man, brutal. Okay, so anyway, you're the star of the show, Michael. Tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what's going on, the whole 9 yards, man.
Sure.
How you got here.
All right. I'm a full-time financial professional, and I started writing on church topics about 3 years ago. Public Square Magazine invited me to write some different articles for them, and I was in a writers group at that time, and this is in 2021, right when Sarah Allen came out with a 70 posting takedown of the CES letter that debunks everything that's really in the letter. And she felt a prompting from the Spirit right before she started that project to stop and not take it apart right at first, but to reveal what she knew about the background story, the surrounding stories, the foundational stories of the letter itself. And she put out a posting that was titled "The Dishonest Origins of the CES Letter." And we read that, or I read that, and some other people did. And I was really taken by it. I looked at it. I could see that it was credible. And it struck me that a much larger investigation needed to be done of this, that it was going to be very involved. It needed to be something where every rock would be turned over to get to the bottom of this storyline upon which members of the church were hooked to read the actual contents of the letter. So that's where this all began. And it was about 6 to 9 months of research around all the other things that I was doing. That went on for almost a year. And then in 2023, Jacob Hess joined me. He helped out with some of the writing and a little bit of the organization of how we brought together all of this voluminous amount of evidence. It's just unbelievable. This is covering a time period from 2013, when the essay first came out, all the way to 2017, when the biggest update was done of the letter, the one that's on the website today. And there was a lot of activity in those years, and the author had voluminous writings on rebutting people who were rebutting him and so forth that are on his website. A lot of YouTube videos, and just a voluminous amount of information that got us here.
Yeah, me, Brad, and Kwaku. We got our section. We got our section of the CES Letter website dedicated to us now. So anyway, what's the elevator pitch, man? Basically, we are talking about a decade-year-old document, but this has been the decade where the reign of terror has basically been, the 1-2 punch of John DeLynn online and then Jeremy Runnels in written form. Propagating the most cynical straw men and misrepresentations of the church that unfortunately motivate people to behave very poorly, shall we say, against us. But this is like a decade old. What's the elevator pitch, man? We all know what the elevator pitch of the CES letter is, that the church has been dishonest about its truth claims. You can't trust the church. Therefore, you should go inactive, distance yourself from it. X, Y, or Z prescription from whoever is using the CES letter to leverage their suggestion. What's the counter elevator pitch? That the people saying we lied actually lied themselves? What is it?
Yes, actually, we just got a response from the author after this study went out. It was on August 14th. And this is what he said. I was a distraught and very frustrated member trying to get official answers when I wrote the CES letter in hopes of restoring my testimony. All of the evidence demonstrates that is false.
So you're saying he lied?
It's false. The foundational
okay,
piece,
but I'm looking for the okay.
Yes,
it's false is a different third. You're speaking in
it's
now.
Not
it's
true.
False, and he didn't know it, even though he was the writer, which would mean it was just an
did
honest error. Like what are we saying here? Let's speak frankly.
No, he didn't. He did know it, and we're going to show you the demonstration of that he was very aware of what he was doing at the time that he did it.
So he lied.
If I could,
He did.
Okay.
Totally
okay.
right.
All right.
So, first of all, just in case people aren't aware of what the CES letter is, there's a picture in the Discord card, and it's just above Luke Hansen's pictures of him eating after he stole Brad's cat off his lawn and consumed Fifi maniacally.
Gotcha.
There's a little picture above that. It shows Jeremy Runnels. If you could bring up that photograph, I could just explain a little bit of what Jeremy Runnels' story is.
What is this from?
At 2 a.m. on Tuesday, this is on January 27th, police reported that Jeremy Runnels was attacked by two people who approached him and began shouting racial slurs at him. These two men struck him in the face. He was on his way to Subway at 2 a.m.
Is this
and they poured chemical all over him, and they said, "This is Mormon country," and assaulted him, and it was very traumatizing. And Jeremy Runnels reported this studiously to the police, and the perpetrators have not been found. But they said, and they looked a lot like Cardinellis and a lot like Brad Whitbeck, he said to the police.
No.
And they said,
don't forget Kwaku. Don't forget Kwaku.
And Kwaku. And so, anyways, that's his story, and it checks out. I mean, there's nothing weird about that story at all. Subway at 2 a.m. in Chicago, getting jumped. This is Mormon country. Makes perfect sense.
So
anyways, just to bring people up on that story, that's kind of where Jeremy Runnels is coming from.
Okay. I hear you. I hear you. That was some smooth reporting. Does that check out as a journalist? Does that check out, Luke?
I think the one thing that gives me pause is that they said this is Mormon country when they clearly would have said this is Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints territory.
This was 2013, Brad.
Touche.
This is the I'm a Mormon campaign.
Well, huh.
Yeah.
Oh, then
Yeah.
we're good. We're good.
Yeah,
So
you
it does
don't,
check
you don't
out.
understand the journalistic nuances of
You
looking
thought
into
it was
these
you
things.
thought it was an anachronism, but turns
Uh-huh.
out wasn't an anachronism.
That's further
Mm.
proof that it's a true story.
further proof.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, so now I'm going to play devil. Oh, you got something else left to say before I play devil's advocate, Jonah?
Oh, I was just going to say to everybody, like the stream. Go ahead. Play devil's advocate on liking your own stream card and bring it on.
Okay, cool. Hate the stream. You know,
Don't
no.
like the stream.
Wouldn't that be funny if there was a hate button? Like literally, like I utterly hate this. You know, that would be that'd be really funny. So anyway, now these are bold claims, though. These are bold claims. Okay. And if you're going to make these kind of bold claims, we love bold claims in the Ward Radio Wigwam, okay, the Ward Radio Warship. But if you're going to come at the king, you better not miss. And you're talking about one of the kings of anti-Mormonism here. Yeah. You got to have some proof before you just say, oh, he lied and I can prove it and receipts and so on and so forth. Because we want to give credit where credit is due, but we also want to give criticism where criticism is due. And I could see our church being so lackadaisical and just refusing to adapt to the 21st century that somebody felt they had to go to the internet in order to kind of get the answers or the community that they're looking for, because we kind of had to do that on our show here. We couldn't get cooperation from a lot of the establishment institutions that utterly refused to adapt to the internet. So we had to start our own podcast, Midnight Mormons, back in the day. So, you know, we want to make sure that we give credit where credit is due and criticism where criticism is due and give both sides of the argument fair representation here. Do you have receipts of your claim that Jeremy Runnels lied about his origin story? If so, what are they?
I'm going to give it to you right now. So,
okay.
There's a number of things that led up to the publication of the essay. So the essay was published in April of 2013, and the author claimed that his faith crisis happened in February of 2012, over a year prior to that. But we're going to go through some evidence of just what was actually going on prior to the time that he actually published. And the other thing is that there are a number of issues related to how he sold this to the church. There's a background storyline that includes a number of different things that we'll go over and talk about. So when you're ready, we can get into
that. No, let's just dive right in, rattle this off. Did you need to say something, Jonah?
I was just going to say, there are some, so I brought some video clips in the Discord of Jeremy Runnels telling his story, video clips from Mormon Stories podcast and these things, where they talk about the genesis of the great CES Letter, this founding tome of their new religion. And so there's a couple of clips in there that we can watch. I don't know if we want to watch those at first so that we can get the myth as it currently stands, and then have Michael bring his evidence to the contrary. Should we do that?
I'm down. I'm fine. So
let's do it.
Let's
roll up to clip number 1. Now these are time stamped, so you're just going to listen for about 8 seconds to each one of these guys.
As we're pulling those up, I just want to say let's put 5 W's in the chat for Darren, who just gifted 5 memberships.
Oh yeah.
And then a quick super chat. FOG Defense says you might need to change it to Steak Radio soon. Oh yeah.
Hello.
Yes. Yeah.
The Ward Radio Discord is now over 2,000 members. So if you have not joined the Ward Radio Discord, you can go to our website, wardradio.com, and up in the upper right corner, there's a little Discord icon. You can click and join that. It's a very fun community there in the Discord. We also would like to shout out and give love to our moderators. We have the best moderators on our Discord that make it functioning. So go check out the Ward Radio Discord. And we would like to welcome, let's see, Sister Mariella Owens, Brother Angry Pie Man, Brother Ryan English, and Brother Carl Lynn Lee. And those are all the people that were gifted memberships, just those 4.
Okay.
Memberships.
Awesome. All right. Well, here's clip number 1, and I play for 10 seconds, you say?
about 8 seconds or 10 seconds. This is his claim about the intended audience of the letter. Go ahead.
Okay, here we go.
When the everyday access falls
we almost gave an ad
Uh-oh,
for at least
Mormon stories?
a national park, or it looks like some kind of holistic food. But anyway, here we're going to skip that ad, and here we go.
Kind of that you wrote that with the internet in mind, that it was just kind of premeditated, kind of theater. Like, I'm writing this for the internet, but I'll go ahead and send it to the guy anyway.
No.
Just have a good story to support what you end up publishing.
At the time, the only people that I had in mind was the CES director, my family, because obviously my family was involved. And, a few people on Reddit that I was going to, I just, to get their feedback, to make sure that my sources are okay.
Okay, all right. So
John Lynn is saying, so there's the accusation that you're doing this all for theater, that you had in mind the internet the whole time. And he says, no. The only person I had in mind was the CES director, of course, my family, maybe some general edits from people on Reddit. Okay, so that was his intended audience. All right, I'd never imagined that this would explode into a giant business that he sells PDFs of and forms a 501c3 around. No, never dreamed of that. Right, Michael?
Yes. So can we go to the slides?
Yeah, sure. Are we done watching clips here? Or are we
as we're going there, I just want to throw out that we have some people in the chat asking about Jeremy's voice. He is hard of hearing, and so that's part of why his voice sounds the way it does.
That's right.
Oh yeah, you can see the hearing correction mechanism there. Yeah. So okay, actually
while we're pulling that up, I just want to make a point that when we're talking about truth claims or a narrative, the origin story is very important. Like when you think of the temple, it's just like origin story. It's in the beginning and it goes through America. We're always talking about the founding fathers. The church, we're always talking about Joseph Smith. So the origin of something as humans, as creatures that latch on to story rather than just like random assortments of facts, the origin story of something is very important. And it seemed like Jeremy was aware that the real origin story of the letter was not as compelling as the one that he ended up putting out there. And so for people saying like, oh, well, who cares about these claims? The fact that the King James version of the Book of Mormon doesn't show up in the whatever proves something. Like, no, the origin story does matter. And the fact that he lied about it is not that good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's burn through these last two clips so we just kind of establish what the actual kind of mythos of the thing is right now, and then we will give the floor to Michael Peterson here to do with it as he chooses.
Yeah. So the next clip is about him. His grandfather comes to him when he's struggling with these questions, and he doesn't want to gish gallop his grandfather. Go ahead. And
here we go.
I think it was around that, maybe just before Christmas. He found out somewhere around there. So. In 2013, he actually drove up to my place, about a 600-mile trip, a round trip, and just to come up and talk to me, see what's up and how he can help. We just had a conversation, and to me it was a tough conversation because I didn't want to. How do you tell somebody, okay, I don't believe because of this and that and this and this, without you don't want to put that on them. I didn't want to put it on my grandpa. And
we don't want to put it on his grandpa, he says.
Yeah, and he's a nice guy.
You don't want to do that.
Yeah.
You don't want to just put it, you don't want to just projectile vomit all of your cynical doubts all over somebody. Like, who would ever do something like that, says the author of the CES letter.
And also, if it is actual doubts, then we don't have a problem with it. But something that we brought up during This Is the Show and during our early days of Midnight Mormons is, we call into question whether or not these were actually just legitimate doubts or if this isn't just spiritual terrorism, somebody hiding behind the school bus of doubt. So you're not allowed to fire back. You're not allowed to fire back. Doubts are protected while launching their rockets into vulnerable targets of the enemy. In this case, the enemy being the active and faithful members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So, all right. Well, he's saying, I was all in good faith. no bad faith whatsoever. And I have a feeling you're chomping at the bit, like you want to be able to respond to this. But we'll get through the last quick clip first.
Actually, why don't you skip to clip number 4?
Okay.
Let's just skip number 3. Go to number 4, and this will be the last clip. We'll come back to number 5 later. Go to clip number 4.
Here's the last clip.
He's talking about the intended audience of the letter, like why he was writing it. What is the genesis of the CES letter?
Okay, here we go.
So, contrary to some people's perceptions, it's not like one day I decided, how am I going to create a document that's going to cause some trouble for the church? The letter was for the CES director, and it just caught on the internet.
Was this for the CES
I spent
director?
exactly
And then
zero marketing dollars. Still.
Okay, so it just caught on because the public was so desperate for the truth that he was offering that this was all, again, just a happy accident, as Bob Ross would say.
Right.
Okay.
So we should clarify something here.
Okay.
So I told you that he claimed, the author claimed that his faith crisis started in February 2012, right? So fast forward another 13, 14 months. In March of 2013, he began writing the letter and announced it on ex-Mormon Reddit. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Then it was actually sent out the following month in April, around April 20th. So, but what happened prior to this, somewhere in that early spring, was that his grandfather, who had become aware, as he said, that he was disaffected, set him up with a single church education system director who was a friend of his. And this CES director reached out to him via email and said, what are your issues?
So you've actually confirmed that aspect of the origin story yourself.
We believe that is true.
Now you just believe that because Jim Bennett says it's true, and that whole kind of
Here,
controversy that happened.
Show him, Mike. Show him the stuff you found. Can you bring it
The
up?
PowerPoint.
Well, yeah, we'll get to that point in a minute. It's a little ways down the line in the slide. But I wanted to tell you that we believe that part of the story is true. And so what he decided to do at that moment was put together what is now known as the CES letter, and then he emailed it to the director on the 20th. So it was written sometime between that late March period through the end of April.
But so what you're saying, if I understand you correctly, is you're saying you were able to confirm some of the data points and the claims of one Jeremy Runnels, at least in the fact that he did indeed once upon a time correspond with an employee. We don't know who, but some employee somewhere. Could have been like, I don't know, a janitor that subbed for one class, or it could have been the director of the whole entire program himself. But he did indeed talk to somebody in CES, but it sounds like you're calling into question saying we can't trust the rest of that sentence about his actual desire to have an honest dialogue, because you're saying he'd already created the letter by that point?
No,
or
because of
what's this timeline proving?
Because of his online activity prior to that, where he was bashing the faith over a 6-month period consistently online. And there's a bunch of other evidence.
So you're
about
saying
this.
that you found on your internet research, especially diving into
I'm
the
going to show it
logs.
to you.
Yeah, so you found, and you've brought the receipts, that the origin of this story wasn't the CES director not being able to answer questions. The origin was he'd already been radicalized online.
Right.
Now this was just the excuse for him and the emotional leverage to just make that much more effective, like when terrorists hide behind school buses.
That's right. He was on an upward trajectory of more and more hostility toward the church, even to the point that in February of that year he began gathering information online, and we'll show you a slide that talks about that. And then it was just the timing of the moment that the CES director happened into this story.
Oh, so he was already on his way.
He was already on his way, and
so the happy accident was him actually meeting a CES director.
Well, he didn't meet him.
Now he had an excuse, digitally meeting him. So now he had an excuse to call it the CES letter.
That's exactly right. Bingo.
Oh, wow.
Bingo.
So, okay, can you walk us through from the very beginning?
Yeah,
Awesome.
and I will do that. So
Just do it fast because you have 175 slides here, and I don't know if I'm ready for
I knocked
175
it down.
slides.
Hey, I knocked it down to 125.
Okay, rock on. Let's
You gotta
burn
give me
through
some
these,
credit
man.
there.
Let's-
I get some credit here.
Let's burn through these. Okay, so
Jonah
here.
was telling me about this.
We ready?
Okay, so yeah, I'm ready. I can
Okay,
show it
here
to
we
you
go.
now. Okay, so were these ever the sincere questions of an earnest truth seeker? This is a 70-page report that was put out just 6 to 8 weeks ago. It's the result of all of our research. It's loaded with footnotes. There's a lot of content in the footnotes. You can see this study at www.publishpeace.net. I recommend
Publishpeace.net.
Publishpeace.net. It's right there.
The irony of a takedown getting put up.
Yeah,
under
that's another story that I'll
publishpeace.net.
tell you about. Because eliminating falsehood is an element of publishing peace.
Hey, they're going to kick you out of the Niceness Culture Club if you do that, bro. If you do that, you're going to lose your funding.
That's right.
So, okay, cool.
Okay, so that we recommend everyone read the actual study, read the evidence that we came across and is irrefutable.
Okay.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how this letter was shaped. So the author had a number of storylines that surrounded the letter. We call that the shiny wrapper. That's why the letter was written, who it was really intended for, his state of mind when he actually wrote the letter, and what his overall purposes were regarding what he expected that letter to accomplish. So we call that the shiny wrapper. It includes his background story and basically saying that I was just a disaffected, doubting member of the church, and the church was not responding to me. I was trying to reach official sources, and they would not respond to me. And who wouldn't be taken with such a story? Because when people, and if we believe someone is actually in a faith crisis, we're all naturally reaching out to them. We're trying to help them. And we're going to demonstrate that the author was well aware of this and that this was the hook to get people to actually go into the content of the letter and actually read it. So,
that is so pernicious. It's like in that one movie, The Kingdom, where they sent in the one suicide bomber to actually deploy the smallest of the suicide bombs. And then when all of those first responders came to try and help everybody that was a victim of the first one, the bigger one went off so it would have even more effect. That's brutal. These are literally terrorism tactics, man. That's brutal.
Now when we did this research, it was very interesting. Yes, it was a eye-opener to watch the reactions on the internet to the letter. They're all over Facebook. Anyone can go look at these, right? They're on Reddit, they're on Facebook, they're on various places on the internet. I'm talking about the reactions of people to looking at the letter initially from 2013 to say 2015, that time period. And 3 out of 4 times, 2 out of 3 times, they're responding to what Jacob and I call the shiny wrapper. That's this story, these storylines surrounding the letter. And this is a very good example of it right here, if I could have the slides back. Okay, so I like this lady's name, Miss Sarinsky. I just thought that was cool.
All right.
So she's responding to the letter, and here's what she says. From my understanding, the letter wasn't intended to be this big exposure of the church. Jeremy Runnels had legitimate questions that he was seeking answers to. Why couldn't anyone just honestly answer his questions? Obviously, it's because no one has the answers. Now, anyone observing the reactions on the web, this is emblematic of hundreds of reactions. I said probably 3 out of 4, 2 out of 3. They're talking about that wrapper around the essay almost more than they're talking about the content. A good deal.
Almost more than they're talking about the actual content.
A good deal of the
They're
time. I'm
talking
talking
about the
about in
origin
the beginning.
story.
They do talk about the content, but I'm telling you that the emotional reaction to the letter is all based around his background story.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
And I just want to point out, some people might try to brush this off as saying, oh, this is just ad hominem because you're attacking the person who made the letter, not the letter itself. And it's like, no.
No.
This is clearly
Right.
addressing content within the letter itself.
Exactly.
There's much more. There's
and
much more
the-
than this.
We reject.
Like the whole point, the thesis of the letter is that the church has hidden problematic stuff from you.
That's right.
So in a way, the letter is almost the supporting evidence of his personal experience, and not the other way around.
Right.
Well put, Luke.
So we reject the ridiculous idea that a colossal public deception carried out by one person should not be exposed because the report of it might be perceived as a personal attack.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
So
Absolutely.
Well, and also my only bit here that I will say is it's not just an issue, it is the issue.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, all of the studies show, and also our personal intuition suggests, that whether the studies show that people go inactive or they lose their faith largely because of whether or not they feel they can trust the institution or trust the church.
Right.
And if the church is hiding things, then it is untrustworthy. And what the things actually are isn't really that important as much as whether or not they are getting hidden. And what the CES letter was so effective at was bringing little kind of gish-galloping a bunch of weird and unknown stories about the history of the church that those of us who are kind of a little bit more in the historical know about the church than the normie, they were able to bring those out of the woodwork in a young internet, out of the odd anti-Mormon books that existed for 50 years, and out of the odd internet forums and social media platforms that were still in their infancy, in the absence of the actual official church addressing these and adapting to the 21st century. They were able to amalgamate all of these kind of off the beaten path stories and then stick them in this very handy dandy and professional looking online PDF that had the thin veneer of academia while lacking the verifiability and credibility thereof. But it looked so good that when he came out and said, "Hey, have you ever heard of the Kinderhook plates?" "Oh, no, I haven't." "Well, here's half of the story, our version of the story, and let me tell you other things they lied to you about."
That's right. And
so this isn't an issue, it is the issue.
It is. The design
is the premise. The entire premise is the issue of the CES letter.
It sure is. It's designed to rob you of every piece of your testimony of the restored gospel of Jesus Christ. And it's also designed to cut you off from heaven.
Now, can you say that's the motivation? Are you for sure? Do you have any proof of that? Did he state that online?
Well,
or is that just what you're thinking because you see that as the result thereof?
That's the evidence within the letter itself. When you read this letter, it's step by step trying to gradually take away every fundamental piece of our testimony of the restored gospel of Jesus
No, that
Christ.
might just be the effect, and you're casting nefarious aspersions upon him. What if he literally was just an honest truth seeker who was looking? You have to have proof that his motive, if you want to impugn the motive, do you have any proof that his motive was to do spiritual damage?
Well, hang on.
To me,
So I actually love, there's one section of his report, of Michael's report, that talks about this with I don't remember who, is it Sarah Allen that says this, or somebody says this, who says, after hearing him planning the letter, crowdsourcing the information, trying to rearrange it so that it really hooks people, so that it's most destructive it can be, this person reacts and says, wait a minute, if this was all a sincere quest for truth, why are you like premeditating all this Machiavellian deception specifically to destroy people's testimonies? Like, that's not what you do when you're looking for truth. Like, you planned this out to hurt people. It's a great section. I think I can't remember, is it section 4, section 5? I can't remember which one it is, but it's excellent at publishedpeace.net, where he goes through the evidence and sees this guy planning it all out from the beginning, not to really get answers, but to just hook people and destroy their faith.
Well, I just want to get you on record here, because for me, it is self-evident his intentions. I'm not an idiot. I've worked in the media for 20 years. I know a freaking charlatan BSer when I see it because I grew up in Los Angeles, dude. Right. Like, that is my briar patch, okay? But so to me, it is self-evident and it is obvious. And as an authority figure on BS, I know a BSer when I see one. Okay,
sure. And you asked,
but do you have any actual proof, screenshot.
Oh, we do.
Of him saying, "Oh, okay."
Well, you'll see as we unfold this here. Got a little bit of spoilers going on there, and you wanted the elevator pitch first rather than the evidence first. So we got it kind of reversed, but that's all right. I'm going to go ahead and give it to you now.
Okay, hit it, go for it.
Okay, so we're talking about Miss Serinsky and her reaction and how this was very typical of reactions on the web, right? That this was what motivated people to give Runnell's writings a look, right? So I'd like to just say, and we're going to show this, that the material inside the CES letter, by the author's own admission, is a regurgitation of material from Gerald and Sandra Tanner. It's also known that it's material from Mormon Think, which is a very anti-church website, and also Insider's View of Mormon Origins. There's all kinds of parallels inside of it, and it's other pieces that are culled from other places, but that's the heart of the CES letter. And the example that I like to do, and I don't have a book handy, maybe you could hand me that one, and I'll use it. It's right behind you there. So I'll show you.
You mean Jonah Barnes' book,
yeah,
Key to the Keystone?
Key to the Keystone. Hand me
Oh,
Key to the
hey,
Keystone.
what a happy accident.
So,
you know what
so
I
I haven't,
Thanks, Mike.
So if you think about this for a minute. If you take a returned missionary who's come off his mission, he's in the Spirit, he has gifts of the Spirit, he's attending the temple regularly, or a member of the church preparing to go to the temple, or a sister about to be sealed, or anyone that's just living close to heaven and is receiving personal revelation in their lives and is close to Jesus Christ. And if you handed them, and we're going to pretend that this is more, if you handed them Insider's View of Mormon Origins, or if you handed them one of the Tanner's volumes, right? They would take a look at this, they would thumb through it like this, and 9 times out of 10, they would take it and toss it.
Okay.
They would recognize immediately what it is. They'd be able to recognize. They might get interested in some things in it and go down a little bit of a path there, but they're ultimately going to lay it aside, recognizing that it's something that's designed to take their faith from them, right?
Okay.
So why did that, if the Tanner's writings in Mormon Think and Insider's View of Mormon Origins makes up the body of the CES letter, then why didn't some people do that? And that's where the wrapper comes in, right? The enticing wrapper that caused people to really give it a look. And then there's some step-by-step seduction going on in the beginning of the letter by design of the author. The author's actually admitted this.
So he wasn't a researcher, he was a marketer.
That's right. He's a full-time...
He's a propagandist.
That's his career. He's a full-time...
Yeah, but so are we, man. All media is narrative. All communication is propaganda. If these pansies didn't have a testimony and they suck so bad and were lazy learners, is this not some kind of evolutionary benefit?
So, Cardin, did you make the reason why you started Word Radio?
Oh, yeah. No, I'm being devil's advocate here. I'm also just trying to give credit where credit is due. And I want somebody to come up with the answer that, hey, is it not our duty to comfort those that stand in need of comfort, strengthen the weak, and actually provide for those that may not be more spiritually vulnerable? I was just trying to get somebody to say it.
Okay. What I'm hearing from Mike is Jeremy Runnels effectively made a Trojan horse of a poor, truth-seeking guy who then shoves in every single anti-Mormon argument you've had since the 1830s.
That's right.
And puts it all in one place.
That's right. Condense it
Okay,
down.
so I can't believe I'm saying this.
Wait. Don't cut off Mike. No one cut off Mike
anymore.
anymore.
Slides.
Stop.
I want to see
Jonah.
a slide. Can we get to a slide?
What
He's
slide?
literally doing that.
Yeah. He's saying go back to your slides because you've basically proven that he just Smollett this. Everybody wanted to protect the young, innocent African-American from white supremacist violence. That's why it was so disappointing when they found out that it was all staged. So continue.
Okay. So let me I'll show you the slides again.
Cool.
So can we see it? Okay, good.
Yeah,
good. Okay, so these are the storylines that the author wrapped around the content of the essay. We just discussed some of them. The origin of the letter, what the letter actually is, its purpose, why it was written, its audience, who it was aimed at, and the author's frame of mind when he wrote it. This makes up what we call the shiny wrapper. It makes you want to open the box, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so, and this is what the claimed storylines of the author. The author was just a disaffected and doubting member of the Church of Jesus Christ seeking answers to difficult questions. His purpose was to restore his faith. Multiple times, just like the quote that we started with here, he said that he was seeking to get his testimony restored. He said it was aimed solely at the director, and that the director and the Church of Jesus Christ refused to answer him. And this is the quote that I just quoted at the start of the show. I was a distraught, frustrated member. This is just a month ago, right? Repeating the very things that he's repeated through the years.
Yeah. And what he's doing effectively marketing-wise here is he is setting himself up as his target audience. Anyone who is a frustrated member of the church, who's honest seeker of truth.
Exactly.
Hey, I am living your story. Sorry, continue, Mike.
No. That's dead on. That's dead on. So, and the responses, as we said, many of them, most of them, were this appeal is what drove them to read the study and engage with the author and empathize with the author. Now, there were people who defend the faith and have defended, who have debunked the CES letter, who nonetheless wrapped their arms around Runnels and believed what was in his introduction. In other words, they thought that he really was a sincere seeker of truth, and that CES guy really messed up and should have treated him better. And these are the very people that are arguing against what Runnels wrote, but they're still wrapped around the story. Well, Stephen Harper recently read this study, and Dr. Stephen Harper of BYU, and he just recently spoke at FAIR, and he was one of those, and he admitted some of the frustration in finding out that he was deceived. So this is what he said. Now, this is just a few weeks ago, right? The author was not an honest truth seeker, as many, many people have done. I took for granted that he was who he said he was. I was one of many, who knows how many thousands, who read the CES letter and wanted to wrap my arms around Jeremy Runnels and say, man, that sucks. I wish that stupid CES guy had been better to you. And that's just not what happened. That's not the truth. So what we did, there was so much evidence that we decided that the only way we were going to be able to present this in a way that would make sense is to divide it into areas of evidence. So that's why when you open the study, you're going to see 10 lines of evidence. And the first two, we're going to go into some detail here, and then we'll have a bunch of different comments, and we'll pull slides for some of the others. But why don't we just dive right into it?
Yeah, just dive right in.
Okay, so the first piece of evidence that shows that this storyline that we're talking about, and we're talking about this many storylines in the package, was never true, even from the beginning, is the author's activity prior to writing the letter. Adversarial church bashing long before the letter was written. That's the first point. So let's take a look at this. So we're going to get the timelines going here again, right? So the author claimed that his faith crisis started in February of 2012. Yet here we have in July, just a couple of months later, his coming out. And let's talk about where he decided to come out online. It was on Exmo Reddit. And for those who don't know, that's a very extreme anti-Latter-day Saint site. It's
the Daily Stormer of Mormonism. Like,
wait,
that's right.
Are you sure that's not where like active members go to look for Sunday school lesson ideas? Right?
Yeah. No, and there is religious bigotry regularly on that site. There are religious tropes related to our faith. Even last week or earlier this week, they were mocking the celebration of the church celebrating President Russell M. Nelson's birthday. So that's the daily feed there. This is a very extreme place. So, but this is the place of all places on the web where the author could have come out. There are places where you could be a little one way or the other. There's different Reddit channels. There's Facebook page groups. There's all kinds of places where you could have a dialogue if you were really trying to recover your faith or you really wanted to get feedback and that kind of thing. No, this was on Exmo Reddit where he came out. Now, how does he come out? Well, he chooses a name, a pseudonym.
Earnest truth seeker, right?
No.
Is that what he said?
The name was Kolabat, which, and obviously it's a derivative word from Kolob, and it's a deeply embedded anti-Latter-day Saint meme. That word online, 9 times out of 10, it's used to mock the church, right? Anybody that's been out in the church defense world knows that. The average member of the church doesn't talk much about Kolob. It's a planet in the book of Abraham. It would be like talking about one of Abraham's
and just like you say, it's the flying spaghetti monster is my God, calling it the sci-fi fertility cult.
Right.
Yeah,
that's right.
It's Kolobot.
So the author comes out with a mock in this locale that we're talking about, a major mock of the faith. Then he chose a flare, a subreddit. And we don't, because the research won't take it all the way back. Like we know for a fact that this July time frame is when Kolobot came out. That's proven right on Reddit. But it doesn't really let you go back and actually tell you when the flare was created, but we believe it was fairly early on. And the flare was, I'm on a taper. Now, I'm riding on a tapir. A tapir is a Central American donkey-like animal that some have speculated may be a species of horse in the Book of Mormon record, because, as you know, the Book of Mormon mentions horses many times, and many who oppose the faith question that there were any horses in pre-Columbian America, even though there's been many studies, many discoveries of horse remains, and one of them just 2 years ago in a very credible study, once again, of horse remains in North America. But this was a mock of those who were trying to come up with another, or who, not trying to come up with, or who thought that it might be a tapir that they were talking about. So the author comes out, Kolobot, I'm on a tapir.
Okay, so let's keep burning through these, and then we'll get some super chats.
That's in July, okay? Now, the first attack upon the church occurs just a couple of months later, on October 2nd, where Kolobot attacks President Brigham Young and the truthfulness of modern prophets. Here's the I'm on a tapir.
Okay, now, as a humorist who absolutely loves humor, I just think, okay, cool, that might just be a joke instead of like, I'm on a boat, which was Andy Samberg meme. He could have just said, I'm on a tapir. The only problem is I think what you're saying is it's obvious because of the forum that when Nick Fuentes
that's a good word.
Yeah, when Nick Fuentes plays Grand Theft Auto and runs over a Hasidic Jew repetitively, calling it Ben Shapiro, you're like, okay, well, this is no longer video game humor. This is religious bigotry and anti-Semitism. You're saying due to the forum and the obviously cruel nature. I mean, ex-Mormon subreddit is literally the Daily Stormer of Mormonism. You're saying it was obviously religious bigotry. Okay.
And this was around the time that the Old Spice commercial was out that ended with, I'm on a horse, right?
Yeah.
And so the I'm on a tapir is like the direct reference to horses being tapirs that Daniel Peterson was saying at the time. So
at this point...
So months and months before he ever wrote CES anything, this whole story even begins, months, almost a year before it even begins, he dives into the most vicious anti-Mormon forum that he can find, and he mocks the church openly, and he latches on to tapirs and Kolob and goes full anti before any of this happens.
That's right. That's 9 months prior. 9 months prior to writing. And then 6 months prior to writing in October, he comes out with his very first posting under Kolobot on Reddit, where he attacks Brigham Young on the subject of plural marriage.
Okay.
And it's really an attempt to undermine our confidence in modern prophets, the way this thing was phrased. Now, that was on October 2nd, but watch what happened 8 days later. Now, this is the one entry. There's 11 of these leading into the writing of the letter. And the majority of them were posted in only a 4.5 month period. But this particular posting that we're going to talk about now happened out on a now defunct website. It's actually still up, but it doesn't have current entries on it. It was called Mormon Curtain. And he came out on that forum with a posting titled, under Kolobot, titled Open Letter to Quentin L. Cook of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. And what's interesting, if you open this up, you can go look at it. It's in the study. There's a link to it. It's fascinating to read it, to look at it. But I'm just going to give you a flavor of what was inside this letter, this mocking letter. I'm one of those formerly spiritually lost and apostate souls whose testimony was destroyed by falsehoods I found on the evil internets. But on Saturday night, following your advice at General Conference, I repented of my disillusionment, and it totally worked. Now, he's referring to a talk by Elder Cook that was warning about anti-Latter-day Saint writings on the internet. That's what he's responding to. And then he goes on to say, I used to believe a lot of vicious lies, all of which are found in LDS or LDS-friendly sources I read about on the evil internets, lies about Joseph Smith, Brigham Young, the First Vision, the Book of Mormon, and everything else you can think of about the Lord's church.
Ooh.
Jeez.
This guy's long gone.
Brad,
dude.
Right.
Brad wanted to say something. Brad.
Sure.
I just want to say, like, that right there is enough for me. You know, just seeing that open letter to Quentin L. Cook. This is something that Kwaku showed me when we were working on This Is the Show. Was this open letter to Quentin L. Cook, where I'm like, oh, yeah, Jeremy Runnels was 100% not a good faith actor about this, and he's covering stuff up. You know, it is wild. If anyone is able to read through that letter, and also, I mean, the way that it sounds similar to the original printing of the CES letter.
There you go. Now we're going to talk about that. So that,
perfect. Cool.
That's the next slide. So watch.
Okay.
So here's the open letter to Quentin L. Cook, because it goes down the little mini paragraphs on each of these topics. That I just quoted some of it, right? So,
yeah.
And these are the topics that are mentioned in open letter to Quentin L. Cook. Can you see?
Yeah.
Now look to the right on this slide at what actually showed up in the CES letter 6 months later.
Wow, almost all of them.
Yep.
It's a little similar.
Yeah. Now let's go back in time. In the spring of that year, right, in February, when he had his faith crisis, one of the first two places that he went to when he was really getting into the anti-material was he went to Grant Palmer's Insider's View of Mormon Origins. Well, I just went out and looked at the introduction to that book, and take a look at the comparison here between what's in the meat of Insider's View of Mormon Origins and what showed up in open letter to Quentin L. Cook, and then what showed up a year later in the CES letter.
Okay.
He's a plagiarist too.
So, Mike, this looks an awful lot like the CES letter's own graphics of plagiarism.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I was thinking the same thing.
That's funny.
Oh,
Okay.
a little ironic.
Yes. Now he also, he looked at some things on the web. He looked at FAIR. He ordered Insider's View of Mormon Origins. He mentions Mormon Think twice, and he also ordered Richard Bushman's book on the prophet Joseph. So there were other things that he was reading, but he keeps coming back to Grant Palmer, as you're going to see in just a moment.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so
really fast before we go, catch us up on some super chats, Brad, if you don't mind.
You got it.
Okay, very good. Okay, so that was on October 10th, right? Now, by the way,
wait, no, we're reading the super chats.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay, real fast. We got one from Brandon Cole. He says, in Mexico, we ate lamb at a taco stand. We later visited its owner to share a message, and there was no lamb in sight, but there were many stray dogs.
Oh my goodness.
Next up, Stephen Diamond. Join the Ward Radio Discord Writers Group. We are ready for an assignment card, and we're close to 40 members and growing.
Actually, that's going to be coming. Be careful what you wish for.
Quit says,
seriously.
Thank you all for your faith. I really need to lean on people like you.
Okay, excellent.
Thank you.
That's good to hear. We're doing what we can to help. This one is from Brad's family cat, Fifi. Meow, meow. Brad, help me. I'm home alone, and that scary man Luke is at the door. He looks hungry. Oh, no, Brad. Help.
All right, great super chat.
Who does that? Who did
They
that?
made an
That's all I have to
entire...
say.
Who did that? Who are you?
Delicious.
They made a new account just for that.
That's funny.
Beautiful.
Keep going.
Diamond Dave says, Francisco Torres asks, can I translate your content to Spanish? We need this in Latin America, losing too many people because the anti-Mormon stuff was translated in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, and the CES letter does a very good job of taking disaffected return missionaries and turning them into translation mills for the CES letter. So, yeah, interesting.
And they're kept busy because he keeps updating the CES letter with new versions.
Yeah. Okay. Is that it,
Okay.
Brad?
We've got 3 more.
Okay, hit it.
And a quick welcome to Danny Gray. So
Okay.
W in the chat for him.
All right.
And
Danny.
next up, FOG Defense says Runnels is the perfect example of lies travel around the world twice before the truth has a chance to tie its shoes.
Exactly. We quote that. in the study.
Okay, interesting.
Nice.
Keep going. Let's do.
Ben here says even Michael Knowles raised a glass to President Nelson's 100th birthday today.
Rock on.
First Glenn Beck with Tucker Carlson, now Knowles. We're making some inroads, eh?
Rock on.
One can
rock
hope.
on, one can
And then
hope.
Rex Good
Nice.
says, isn't it obvious? Unimportant wannabe temper tantrum because important people aren't answering his unimportant questions.
Dude, that
Ooh,
letter to
jeez.
Quentin L. Cook did sound like a freaking school shooter manifesto, dude. It's like same freaking
Yeah,
vibe, man.
right.
Like, it's the same vibe, dude. It's like freaking A. Like, I think ex-Mormon subreddit's going to get sued with some of the Reddits that they allow, dude. As a journalist, the ex-Mormon subreddit sounds literally a lot like 4chan in like not the good sections, bro. So I'm surprised somebody hasn't made that connection yet.
So we haven't.
It was more of a temper tantrum to me, just
Sure.
somebody who is just angry. They're not
Like
insincere
but
seeker
I'm
of truth
taking the
mode.
whole thing holistically. What ex-Mormon subreddit enables when, God forbid, violence breaks out and members of our church are victims of it because our boomer COB is too stupid to prep for the toxicity they don't recognize online because they're still pre-internet boomers. When that happens, there will be blood on their hands because they didn't keep their ear to the train tracks and see the violence that is brewing on ex-Mormon subreddit. I take that to the bank, dude. The first person that does something horrible against the Mormon church will have been radicalized on ex-Mormon subreddit.
So we have an update. Sorry, I'm just getting news right now. We have an update. Jeremy Runnels is meeting with the press right now. He's actually in Texas. We have in the Discord a photograph, Cardin, of Jeremy dressed in white. It's towards the bottom of the Discord. If you bring that up right now. Jeremy Runnels actually is just totally heartbroken by the number of members of the church who are trapped in this horrible cult, and he went to see them in the cages. In the cult cages there. It touched his heart in such a way. He's just weeping. Uncontrollably.
He's
totally
is he
authentic.
throwing the CES letter books at them?
Yeah.
Yes.
Or is he making them buy them first? And
He's
then throwing
reading
them
it out loud
at
to
them?
them. He's just heartbroken over this whole thing. And to watch the emotion is very touching.
As we talk about at the end,
to bring that to you.
As we talk about at the end of our report, there's a movement of people who were affected by the CES letter, left the faith. Some of them took their names off the records and such, who are being rebaptized, who are coming back. They're on podcasts. They're
Worse than that, though. This
come back.
broke up families. People engaged in the worst, up to the point of words I cannot say on YouTube because of the nihilism this introduced into their lives.
Yeah, it did a lot of damage.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like people talk about like, Mormon gay youth, so on and so forth. What the CES letter did to tell gay members of our church that they're not welcome and they're hated resulted in more self-harm of people that I know than like, I don't even think I can talk about the examples. You know what I'm saying? Without getting flagged online. It's horrible. So anyway, continue. We got a ton of slides to burn through, so hit it.
We got to get going. Okay.
Yeah.
So that was on the 10th, and the material ended up in the CES letter. But even the first one that we quoted on October 2nd, that showed up in the CES letter too. The one about Brigham Young and the particular thing that he was mocking that Brigham Young had said. But now let's go to October 11th, the very next day. He blasts the translation of the Book of Mormon because the Ouija board that he used to con people, he's talking about the prophet Joseph, in his treasure hunting days is the same Ouija board that he used to translate the Book of Mormon. This is something else that turns up later, 6 months later, in some of the material. For some who have read that, they'll recognize that, right? So he's coming out declarative. He's not asking questions. And by the way, that Quentin L. Cook letter, there were not 175 different questions. Those were all declarations of falsehood. So we're not asking questions, right? So now we go to October 25th. Now look at the timeline here. This is all in the same month. Now he attacks directly the prophet Joseph Smith using an old kind of meme that's out there, right? Proof using 100% LDS sources that Joseph Smith was a fraud. So then let's move ahead. So let's go to November 11th. Kolobat coaches a young man on how to persuade his father to leave the faith. So this is only a couple of weeks later. And,
oh my gosh.
And what was going on here was I think it was a very young adult. I don't know that he was a teenager, but I know he's in that range, right? 18 to 21, something like this. And he's living at home, and he's trying to persuade his dad to leave the faith. And by the way, this was not this was not the author's initiated comment. This was this young man going out onto Exmo and telling this story about what he's trying to do with his dad. And then Runnels jumped in to the conversation. And this is what he said. You have a great dad. He says, what should I do? I don't usually bring up the church. He says, nothing. Keep doing what you're doing. A person has to do their own convincing. Your dad's doing the research and asking questions. Let it take its course. Hopefully you pointed him to the right resources. Mormon think.
Oh, jeez.
Okay, so, I mean, to me, that's kind of a nothing burger. I mean, obviously, a Democrat that wants their dad to leave Republicanism and go to Democrat-ism is going to refer him to Planned Parenthood and the Daily, not the Daily Beast. Yes, the Daily Beast. Whereas a Republican's going to refer him to Fox News and celebrate that he's reading the Daily Caller or the Daily Wire.
That's just it, Cardin. Where's he referring him to, right?
Yeah.
He's referring him to Mormon Think. This is clear that Runnels is no longer in.
Oh, yes. It's obvious that he was radicalized.
Territory.
If you're just trying to further prove that he was already radicalized before he wrote the CES letter, we can move on to the next topic because I feel like you already have an orgasm of evidence in that.
This is the point that he had actually stepped beyond just declaring, but he's actually doing a little bit of online one-on-one ministering to try to pull people out of the faith. Saying we're going to see more and more of this as the time goes by, right? That he's doing on the web, making comments and talking.
But what does that
directly.
disprove? That just only shows that he's a good missionary for anti-Mormonism.
But it shows the level, right? It shows the level of his disaffection. You already made the point.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You've
Okay.
already proven that he was already radicalized and was already out.
Exactly.
So keep going.
Okay. Now this is the next one. This is November 12th. So we're still within a 5-week period here, right? He posts this, how do I save my kids from the church? The thing that really struck me about this particular one was his use of denigrating acronyms like TSCC. So he's supposed to be in the middle of a faith crisis, and he's already using acronyms that truly denigrate us and our faith, including TBM, which in its most modest version means, in its worst version, it's totally brainwashed Mormon, right? That TBM is got other meanings that are milder than that. But he's using this kind of thing right now, and he's trying to figure out ways that he can prevent his kids from becoming converted to the gospel.
Or actually, they already supposedly are baptized in the church. He's figuring out how to get him and his wife and his family out.
That's right.
Okay, cool.
That's right. Very good. Okay. So then now we're talking November 25th. And Kolobat links the audience to a prominent bitter church antagonist. So this is a YouTube link that he put out to Grant Palmer, and wanting to be totally thorough, I went out and watched this. And if you want to get spiritually depressed in about 5 minutes, go watch this video because Grant Palmer does a total attempted takedown of pretty much every fundamental truth imaginable. So he's out there saying, "Hey, check out this video." Right? And notice this is the same Grant Palmer, right? That showed up, that was, he read his book previously, and now he's back in the picture again.
Okay, cool. So next.
Okay, let's keep going. Let's keep going. Okay. So now we're coming to January, and we're on January 21st. And in this instance, now he's going to dare young adults who have doubts to leave the faith. For those who are scared to live an authentic life, because you will lose all your TBM friends or be alone, check this out. And it's a link to Robin Williams' quote that it's better to be alone than to be with people who make you feel alone.
Okay.
So he's He's openly making that kind of persuasion. That was on January 21st. Now on February, now we're a few weeks later in February, he begins to ask people on the web for information on a particular topic. The timing here is that Kerry Muhlestein, who's a scholar in Abrahamic studies at BYU, had put out some very persuasive videos defending the Book of Abraham at this time. And so he says, thoughts, rebuttals to Muhlestein's defense of the Book of Abraham. And of course, there's a major a major CES Letter section that covers the Book of Abraham that's going to come up a month later.
And so this is February of 2012?
Did I put 2012 on there? That's an error. That's 2013. So we're talking just a month before he starts to write the letter. And by the way, one of the replies, the material in it, ended up in the letter. Now, we can't confirm that was the source he used for that material. But I thought it was interesting that one of the replies, that very information on the Book of Abraham, shows up in the letter a month later.
Okay, cool.
Okay, now, then on February 19th now, is an open smear. It could only be described as a smear of President Hinckley. He says, reading the Mormon murders and other stuff about the Mark Hoffman disaster really did some damage to how I look at Hinckley. And he accused him of buying the documents and then hiding them and then lying about them. That's what he did. Now,
so he's rehearsing all of the catechisms of anti-Mormon internet. So he's already been initiated.
How low do you have to go to hate Hinckley?
Hinckley? Anyone who lived through that period marveled at President Hinckley's integrity, telling what he did know and admitting what he did not know. So now, and the next one is on February 21st. He denounces the Book of Mormon again and the leadership of the church, and he's insinuating that a faith-promoting article written by Russell M. Nelson in 1993 in an Ensign article validates his accusation that the book's translation is not inspired. And the vast majority of this article is showing all kinds of proofs of the truthfulness of the Book of Mormon. It's very, very faith-promoting. He picks out one little section where they describe the translation process and then comes to this conclusion.
All right, so we get it. He was radicalized long before he said, oh, okay, cool.
Okay, so now, 1 month later, here we are on March 26th, right? We're 4 weeks later. Kolobot announces on Exmo Reddit that he's writing his letter, and he posts a draft online. Now,
really?
He did. Now, remember, this is a month before the letter was actually sent to the CES director. He posts a draft, and he asks antagonists, I need feedback. My TBM grandpa asked me to speak to his CES director friend. CES guy offered to talk to me. Now, I know I'm getting very technical here, but he almost always refers to him as the CES guy. It's kind of casual, right?
Okay.
And then this PDF's a rough draft of what I'm sending over to both him and Grandpa. Need your feedback, advice, guys. Thanks.
Well, this also shows that you say need your advice when you're going to battle. You don't say you say I need your advice when you already have the end goal predetermined. You ask for advice on building a ship when you already want to build a ship.
Exactly.
If you doubt whether or not a ship will work to cross the ocean and you should take, I don't know, the subway over the British Channel or whatever, that's when you start asking like, well, should I do this? What are some good ways? You ask open-ended questions. But when you're asking for advice, it's obvious that, okay, he already has the end game decided. Yeah.
Now you actually
what sincere seekers of truth do.
Yeah, right.
Yes. Well, like my only other thing about this is I don't want to jump in too much, but I will say, like, who did not see through this? Like, how was this? This was obvious to me from day one. Like, Mormons are so stupid and naive. Like, I'm sorry. Like, have you ever heard that phrase that your greatest strength is also your greatest weakness? Like, there is not a more bend over backwards for somebody who is struggling people in North America that I know, that members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, who will make every sacrifice necessary, whether it's financial through tithing and just direct assistance to other members of the ward, or whether it's giving of your time or your talents or your energies. I have been both the giver and the receiver of all kinds of help and advice and assistance and just amazing sacrifices of et al. Things that can be sacrificed from members of my church. And that was what was weaponized here. That beautiful strength of our people was weaponized. And I really hope that like the 2 or 3 generations that were taken by this learned a freaking lesson, because there's some cynical bastards among us, myself included, that was like, oh, this is BS. Like, this is absolute garbage from the very, very beginning, and nobody believed us. And they went so far, if you remember, Brad, as to say that we were being cruel and we were the ones being wrong.
Yep.
But now
that's
once the boomer comes out with the PowerPoint presentation, now they know it's true. It's literally like Dave Chappelle.
Did you call me a boomer?
Yes, I did. You made a PowerPoint presentation. You called yourself a boomer.
It was Google. Hey, it was Google. It was Google Slides. Hey, this was the latest
Google
stuff.
Slides.
Yeah, you're right.
Google Slides.
Nice.
You're right, my man. You're right. So anyway, it's like
First,
it's just
do not
like
use Google Slides.
Yeah, it's just like when Dave Chappelle says, and then it came out on Newsweek, and then you knew it was true, And so it's just like, I cannot believe we fell for this.
Okay, now think about this for a minute. What was the reaction to this posting? If you go out and look, you can research it tonight. You can go out and through the thread and look at it. It's fascinating to watch the reaction. Everyone knows what this is about on Exmo Reddit. Right off the bat, they know it's a takedown of the church. It's not a pursuit of getting concerns
Our enemies
answered.
know exactly what they're doing.
And they talk, I've used this example. We all know what a knowing conversation is, right? That's when two people have their own kind of little language and they know what to say to each other and they know how to respond to one another. You see some of that, and you see some very open, just fawning over this thing, saying it's wonderful, it's perfect, it's excellent. Now, by the way, this first draft, it took a long time to read. Several of them mention how long it was. So we think maybe 3/4 of the whole the 75-page letter was included in this draft. There was a lot in it. One responder said, "This is Mormon think in PDF."
Yeah. There you go.
Yep.
And so we're going to get into some other reactions. There were some very fascinating reactions to this. Okay, so he posts the essay. He asked for feedback, advice. And the author tried to cover this later by saying he wanted grammar correction and source correction. But that's belied by the response because they're throwing information at him. They're counseling him. They're saying things like, you should have had this argument first instead of that one. That's the only thing I would correct. And you need this and you need that and the other. And they were throwing information at him. So it had nothing to do with grammar.
Okay.
Okay. So let's go ahead. And now that was on March 26th. Now, on April 12th, by the way, he promised them, as you probably read there, that he's going to send them a Word document version in a couple of weeks. And that's exactly what he does. He posts it back onto Reddit, again, Exmo Reddit again, on the 12th. He says, "Thanks for all your awesome feedback. I noticed a few links in the document are broken, fix them." And then he gives them a PDF copy, a Word copy, and I don't know what that's called, font Futura. He says, "You guys can do what you want with the Word document. Personalize it for yourself to give to your TBM loved ones." It's
totally
yours.
not a campaign against the church at all.
Totally
this is what
not.
sincere truth seekers do.
Give it.
And remember,
now,
he said,
and then this idea that he had nothing to do with the distribution of the essay. We're going to talk a lot more about that because
now remember, he was asked directly by John DeLynn. It said, "People have accused you of wanting to spread this around on the internet, that this was all motivated to make it public," and he said, "No, perish the thought. It was just for the CS director." You heard the clip at the beginning of this stream.
So here's a question I have. Were Jeremy and John just getting together to do a little kabuki theater, or does John sincerely believe that Jeremy was giving him the real deal when he gave him that answer? Or did he know?
That's an interesting thought.
I don't know.
Okay. So let's keep going here. Then 8 days later, he sends the essay to a CES director, and just days later posts the essay to Mormon Think. We're going to talk about that. He was involved directly in the posting to Mormon Think, which he later denied.
So not only did he deny what he was proven to have done in the posting and the distribution, but by the time he actually was engaging with the CES director that the letter is named after, the whole thing was finished. It was a magnum opus that he was sending to the master's thesis board. This wasn't part of his exploration. It was the capstone of his radicalization, is what you're saying.
Yes.
That's exactly right. Now, there's one more thing to be aware of here. Okay, there was a reaction on both postings from a guy by the name of Big Mike SRT, and he's emblematic. So strikingly, now that I'm not quoting him, this is our language, strikingly, there's immediate recognition from this church antagonistic audience that Runnell's packaging of his essay as a letter to obtain resolution of personal faith issues is a masquerade. And this is what Big Mike SRT says, fan-freaking-tastic. This is a mini thesis. I love how this reads as a legit letter.
A legit letter.
Oh, gosh.
So they know they're using deception. Like they all know they're using deception.
Yeah.
Then he goes on to say, and I have a slide for this we'll show you in a minute, but I think this is a great idea for a public edition for future reference. I love how and then he makes that quote, I love how this reads as a legit letter. The flow is great, and I cannot wait to see someone even try to refute this with anything other than pray about it, follow the Spirit.
You know,
this is what makes it even more hilarious, because a number of the arguments in the CES letter are just bad. And so the fact that it was not just a single dude that like wrote it off the top of his head to do doubts that he had, but like a crowdsourced thing, and they all thought it was really great, just shows you like the level of or lack thereof.
Right. Now we're gonna make a distinction about crowds
have in their critiques of the church.
Now, I had a question, Mike.
Sure.
Because I feel like something that you said back on your timeline.
Sure.
You said that he sent the letter and reported that he had sent it, and then days later he posted it elsewhere. Like, how many days did he give? Like, how many days exactly did he give the CES director to respond?
Okay, now this was admitted publicly in John DeLynne's interview, the very first public interview he did a year later in 2014. And what he said was that the first postings, those two that we talked about, caused it to go viral a little bit. Well, a guy by the name of Tom Phillips, who at that time, he's the guy in England that sued the church. You may know that whole story. But anyway, he set up Mormon Think, or he was directing Mormon Think. And during that early mini viral period, he got a copy of it and he liked it. And this is Runnels telling the story. And he emailed Runnels, and together they agreed to put it up on Mormon Think. And it was about that same time in late April that the letter went up. So probably within days. Those are his words, right? About that same time. So it goes up to Mormon Think. And think about this for a minute. At that time, Mormon Think was a site that was where people got a lot of data and stuff that's anti the gospel in the church. It was probably one of the most visited sites on the web. And then Runnell said, we put it up, and then it really blew up from there. And then he starts laughing. So the next January, he would actually post a message denying that he had any involvement whatsoever in the blow up of the letter on the web.
Dude, I just love
completely over and over again denied it. Denied.
Oh, wow.
We have lots of public statements where he totally denies that he had any hand, no involvement whatsoever. It was unbeknownst to me. That's his language. So I'm summarizing a lot of stuff that's ahead of us, but we're going to move a little faster.
Yeah, keep going.
Right?
Keep going.
Because we know how much Cardin loves PowerPoint.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah.
But it's not PowerPoint, it's Google Slides.
Let me throw in a super chat about that. Polly Nikes 2000 says, making the transition from Microsoft PowerPoint to Google Slides is a prime example of being a stripling boomer.
Stripling boomer.
Nice.
Okay, cool. Oh, actually, why don't you catch us up on Super Chats really fast so that Brittany, who we'd like to welcome to the Ward Radio Wigwam, who just got back from her ecclesiastical and maternal duties, will take back over her position as after you're done with Super Chats so that you can help moderate the chat. I also got Fidget as a moderator in there as well. So anyway, Brad, catch us up really fast so that Brittany knows where we're at.
Okay, so Tiomner says, got my War in Heaven hat with my Widow's Might, almost done with Dragon Guard. Oh, hey, book 2 in the Skystone Chronicles. Thanks, man. And then he says, finished in the language of Adam. Now I need Jonah's book. When can we buy it?
Oh, that's a really good question. Within 48 hours, I have been promised by Hayden Paul, who is one of the proprietors of Plain and Precious Publishing, as well as one of the owners, hosts of the Stick of Joseph, has said within 48 hours we should have a link so that y'all can buy Jonah's book. That link will be in the description of this video as soon as it comes out, and also future videos that we'll be doing. So keep going, Brad.
Okay, next up we got El Marie says, Brad, please read this in your best Australian accent. Oh boy. Okay.
Oh, here we go. Wow, you've been a cat and
I'm
now
nervous.
You're gonna be an
I'm nervous.
Okay, Australian accent. Let me get into it in a second. Dingo baby. Okay, so
Dingo.
these slimy former Mormons are the same types going after me boys, Robert Boylan and Travis Anderson. Crikey. We ride at dawn.
Wow.
Yeah.
We ride at dawn.
There we go.
I love that.
I gotta
Awesome
do what they
accent.
ask.
That was the real deal. That was the real accent.
Yeah, for
really
good. Dude, we don't joke around on the Ward Radio Warship.
I think
dude.
as a
You know?
It's a talented
I'm a
bunch.
legit voice actor, guys. Did you know
That's
this?
true. That's true. Yeah. Why should I
Rock
be
on.
surprised?
Okay, next one. Hit it.
All right. FitMom X3 says the CES letter damaged my household. My husband left and abandoned us. Luckily, he returned and was rebaptized, and the marriage has never been better.
Yay.
Man,
Ah,
yeah. And I know that sometimes people don't recognize this, but there are families that have been legitimately harmed by the CES letter.
Yes, there
And
are.
that super chat was from somebody who was part of it.
Come on,
And so-
everybody's. Not some families, everybody.
Yeah.
Raise your hand. If
I
immediately
think there are some people
we got
who,
Luke, you know you can put yours up because they're making comments.
No, I don't know. I don't know if she was a CES letter person or not.
Oh,
I'm not sure the story
okay.
there.
Oh,
And,
but,
and
yeah,
I
right.
think there are some people who have family who hasn't interacted with the CES letter at all.
Right.
But there are a ton of people who have had people run into it. So, now K Willie, K Wiley? No, K Willie, 1393. Please have Travis Anderson on the show. The method he tears apart evangelicals and antis needs to be studied.
Okay, cool.
Missionary discussions on YouTube.
Hit it. Next.
That sounds like a fun guest. Latter-day Chad says, currently reading books about Magdalene and especially Templars, continuing...
Snake Templars.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like.
Oh, maybe. Continuing Gnostic rituals and eventually Masons adopting it. There's a 1400 scroll from them with compass and square and other temple symbols.
Oh, yeah.
I was watching a brief digression. I was watching Truth Unites, if you guys know that channel, Gavin Ortland, Baptist, and he was talking about the Apostles' Creed, and he had the old picture of the hand going through the veil, the hand of God going through the veil on like one of his slides, and I was like, what the heck is that doing there?
Oh, dude.
That's from
So,
that's yes,
Mormon
that's
symbolism showing up in popular Baptist apologetics videos.
That's all over the cathedrals in Ravenna. There's a particular cathedral in Ravenna that all the mosaics on the wall are basically a temple prep course. Basically the most overt and descriptive and detailed temple prep course just by glancing around the walls. Anyways, we digress.
Awesome. Now, Latter-day Chad also said, the CES letter is proof that Mormons need to know our stuff better.
Well, that's
Very
true.
good.
That's not a bad note.
Oh, and I was going to say, I love seeing all of these screenshots and noticing the asymmetrical warfare going on. The anti-Mormons know exactly what our weak points are and how to exploit them. Yet the members are refusing to admit they exist. Like these are lambs for the slaughter. It's incredible. Keep going.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
and
Oh, I meant keep
No, you
going,
go ahead.
Brad. I meant
You go
keep
ahead,
going,
Brad.
Yeah.
oh, sorry. Just one note on that. I think that there are people who are saying in the comments here that we're just being rude right now. And I want to point out, I don't think that it's rude for us to go through the public statements of a guy who said he was a sincere seeker of truth and show how those public statements do not line up with his portrayal of himself.
Can you re-say that
that is-
statement? Mike, while he's finished what he's saying, look up that statement that you said at the beginning, that we don't require the ruse.
We just reject the crazy idea that a public fraud that was carried out by one person should not be exposed because the report of it might be seen as a personal attack. This was a big deal. It was very, very public. It was aimed squarely at the active members of the church, and particularly those who are vulnerable, teenagers, young adults, in formative stages of developing their belief, their faith, and their testimony. And it was also aimed, as you'll hear later, at those who were fence sitters. He said the target are the fence sitters.
Yes.
He revealed a lot of this later, which we'll get into. But I've got, when you're ready, I've got something else pretty important to tell you.
Are we done with super chats, Brad?
We're real close.
Okay.
Geography Guy says, members who have sincere concerns that want to resolve them don't seek out people who will validate those doubts. And that's fair. But I do think that there are people with sincere doubts who end up getting swindled by this, getting lied to.
We've
by
all
what
been
Jeremy
there,
Runnels
and we've
said.
all
But
been vulnerable.
that was the whole point of it. Like, why else present it that way?
Yeah.
Mhm.
It was
No.
to be like, it was the what's up, fellow kids meme was kind of what was going on
Yes. Yes.
Mm.
Well put, Luke. Yeah.
Now, a yak named Max says, I propose we add an optional third hour to church for an apologetics class, both offensive and defensive apologetics. Get spiritually filled, then as we sharpen our swords of truth.
That would be awesome. I say yes.
Based.
My
there. I
vote.
see you copying and pasting Jacob
Got-
Hansen's
got
idea
my
in the
vote.
chat.
Okay, I didn't hear that one, but it sounded
That's a great idea, though.
Yeah,
Anyway, keep going.
and I just want to point out, it's a very Christ-like endeavor to be able to know what the truth is and to focus on that truth. We need to be aware that people are children of God and focus on that and recognize, hey, we need to treat them lovingly. But I don't think it's a loving thing for us to do to enable people in their fall, right? And enable Jeremy Runnels to continue lying. FOG Defense says, Brittany, is your phone charged? Polly
Yes.
Nike says, okay, boomers, fair is fair. Consider my super chat balance almost positive, but still a generation responsible for America's decline. Polly Nike.
Brutal.
Shy Hodgson says, the Dragon Guard comment reminded me, my 11-year-old son loves the series and wants to know when the third book is coming out. Thank you for writing. Oh, thank you. My wife and I are working on it right now. We have like 3 chapters left, but we already have most of the book to the editor, so it should be very soon. I'm thinking sometime in November is when we're going to be launching.
Okay.
And then Latter Day Chad says, Mormon symbolism in Deadpool 2 haven't seen.
All right. Gonna have to go watch it. All right.
Yeah.
For the heavenly symbolism.
Nice. Okay, and yeah, that we are all caught up.
No, Diamond Dave and Fog Defense said, someone in chat said if Ward Radio was being rude, Brad would apologize for it because he is Canadian. Yeah, that's true. Like
that
true.
is true.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And I've done it before. I mean,
Yeah.
I have called out our own group for being rude to ex-Mormons and asks for us to be more precise in how we talk about things, right? So that we don't make everyone who is leaving the church or has thought about leaving the church feel like they're now lumped in with anti-Mormons, right? Like, I don't think that we should approach things that way.
No.
I think it's important that we recognize there are sincere seekers of truth out there.
Oh, there are.
Oh yeah.
What we're going through right now is showing that Jeremy Runnels was just not one of those.
Yeah, all anti-Mormons are ex-Mormons, but not all ex-Mormons are anti-Mormons. And sometimes we might conflate those. Actually, that's not true. There's a lot of anti-Mormons who are currently Mormons who are going to disciplinary councils right now in England. Anyways, but speaking of the memes, I'm just getting news right now in the Discord, Carden. If you go down, not the very most recent picture, but the one just above that in the forest, we actually have a photograph of Jeremy Runnels delivering his concerns in the CES letter to the CES director. This is proof that refutes Michael Peterson's claims that it was all a hoax. We have a definitive photograph right here for you to behold. This is Jeremy Runnels delivering by hand his letter to the CES director. So what do you have to say about that, Mike, huh? Where's the hoax now? Photographic proof.
I'm going to be silent on that one.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. So we've proven it definitively here.
All right. Do you want to pull up the next one, Jonah, or is it not time yet?
No, not time yet. These people have to stick around.
I think we got to keep going through that.
Yeah.
Through the slides, but as we do, there's just one more important super chat from Jeremy Runnels' neglected cat.
Oh, jeez.
It says, Mr. Jeremy stays up too late on Exmo Reddit and forgets to feed me. But at least he doesn't eat me, unlike that Luke Hansen.
And they even spelled my name right. This guy does his research.
Bro, you ate a cat in Sierra Leone. You're never going to live that down, dog. You're never going to live that down.
What is there to live down?
Yeah.
I ordered it for my birthday.
Wait, what?
Yeah, you weren't here for that, babe.
For that. Yeah.
Sad.
That happened.
The
It's my 20th birthday.
Yeah. So anyway,
okay.
we'll talk about it later. Keep going, Mike.
Okay, good. So I want to remind you of the timeline here. So we showed you two postings of the actual letter, one on March 26th, right? And then the one in early April, 2 weeks later. And then the letter went out, that was on the 12th. And then the letter went out approximately 8 days later. Now, the first posting, the one that we showed you on March 26th, he adds this sentence in, I stand on the shoulders of giants, and all I've done was compile many of their work and put it in my own style and narrative. So he repeats this phrase, I stand on the shoulders of giants, a couple of times on Reddit, and then he does it a year later with Dylan in the interview. Now, you think about that this was, and I didn't realize, I don't know why, we had it right in the study, we had the date correct, but it just didn't dawn on me that until just actually a few days ago that this was actually a full month of deliberation before he actually sent the letter out, and he's aligning himself, as we're going to show you, he aligned himself with people in the anti-community, anti-Latter-day Saint community, who had really gone after the church, like the Tanners, right, or Gerald Palmer. He's considering himself, as if, and you think about that and you think, well, what is this colossal thing that he's about to do that's going to put him at that level where he's standing on the shoulders of giants? What is it that he's about to do?
Okay, hit it. Tell us.
Okay. So the second evidence of what we're talking about here is disinterest in available and established channels for member questions. So I want to point out that the author online has tried to portray his efforts as the honest voice of transparency. So this comes from the website. It says, every single interaction and communication between Jeremy T. Runnels and his former stake president has been recorded and documented from the very beginning. All of these recordings or documentations are listed below and are released to the public. So about 18 months, 17 months after the letter went out, he was called in by his stake president. He didn't go see his stake president. Stake president called him in. He had heard from the bishop about his writings online and what he had done, and brought him in. And he carried a tape recorder in and surreptitiously recorded all of these meetings that he had with church leaders. So he had one, we're going to get to this in a little bit, but he had one in October. He had a second meeting with the stake president in November. All of that he published online. It was all surreptitiously recorded. And then 15, 16 months later, it was a hearing that was essentially for excommunication. He recorded that as well and even videotaped it. So, and then he released all of this with a slew of other information. Every email that he sent to the stake president, some of them were very, very lengthy, right? We're talking 10, 15 pages on various topics and different things. And all of this, he's saying, I've documented everything. I'm totally transparent. I've given you everything related to my relationship with my leaders, the local leaders in the church. And there's some more I can tell you about some comments he made about his bishop, if we need to bring that up. But nowhere in his if we could show the slide on this one.
Yeah.
Nowhere in his exhaustive documentation of church interactions is found any detailed reference to having sought out, while in a faith crisis, local or higher authorities in the church. Not a one. Not a one. Now the next slide here illustrates this quite well, actually, I think. So, because he said, right, he wanted official answers from an official person. Well, who are the actual official channels in the church? Well, we all know what they are. We have a local bishop, called of God to us individually as a minister. We have our stake president. Stake presidents have delegated apostolic authorities. They're very involved in public apostasy situations. But it doesn't stop there. If someone really couldn't get something resolved, a stake president has the authority, has the right to turn and say, I think this person should talk to an area authority 70. And it is possible that some unresolved situation could go as high as the first presidency, but it's a big church, right? That doesn't happen very often. But that's where the official answers are found, where a person's directed to things that are official. And instead, what the author did was he corresponded with a single CES director. Now, it's a good idea to put this in perspective. A CES director, as many of you know, is a coordinator of church religious programs for college and high school students. They're teachers and coordinators. There's over 150 of them, for perspective, worldwide. Now, I personally have been very benefited by CES employees who've taught me and helped strengthen my testimony and all of that. But they don't act in an official capacity for the church, nor do they have the authority to give official answers. Now, this distinction I noted on the slide is missed by many youth and young adults in the church, one of the author's target audiences, who very young people tend to think sometimes that anyone connected with the church is an official authority. The letter plays to this misperception, highlighting this lone CES director as highly authoritative. He was, this is going to him, and this is where, that Brian Hales said that the sending of the letter to the CES director by the author was done to give the letter a false sense of credibility.
Okay, wow. All right, let's keep burning, baby. Keep burning.
Okay, so this education system director actually turned out to be more of a cipher, an incidental actor, who happened upon the unfolding central act, namely Runnell's advancing online crusade against the faith of Jesus Christ. Now, the third item is that seeking feedback from church antagonists prior to publication. Now, he kind of did that, right, when he posted the drafts. So that was part of it. But right after he published the letter, FAIR, the group that defends the church online, they came out with a rebuttal almost immediately. They worked hard. They got to work immediately rebutting the CES letter, right? And so he wanted to respond to them, to argue with them, to rebut their rebuttal. So he immediately begins crowdsourcing, and these are the different crowdsourcings that he did right after publishing the letter, right? So he's asking for information on all of these areas of his letter, or the essay that he had placed in the original, right? So
look at this wording too. Like, it's so awesome. They're so good at this. They're so good at leveraging niceness culture. I'm currently writing a response to Fair's hit piece on a letter to a CES director. Fair is such a puppy. It couldn't write a hit piece if it tried. You are talking about, like, if Brad Whitbeck's nice grandpa took nice truth serum and then, nice cocaine, he couldn't get that nice and sweet. Okay. Like, but they know if they say, oh, it's a hit piece. John DeLynn running underneath it, they're writing hit pieces about me, guys, got farms shut down. He got farms shut down by saying, oh, they're writing a hit piece about me, and it's just like this. We are such a weak people if that works, and it did work. I hope this. I hope people don't fall for this next time. Keep going.
Okay, so the asking of the information causes you to there's a disconnect, right? It's almost like the author's trying to get us to suspend common sense. Why would he immediately start blasting every piece of the rebuttal to the letter if he's trying to get his questions really answered? Now, there's another interesting thing, and we have a slide for this, but it's later on, but I'll just tell it to you. So the author has publicly said, it's right on his website right now, that from 2013 to 2016, from the release of the letter to 2016, the letter existed for the purpose of getting his questions answered and resolving his concerns. All during those years, including the time that he went before the leaders. So we have a situation here where there's just a tremendous common sense disconnect. People don't typically do that, right? They wouldn't go out and write an 850-page response to FAIR that blasts the church, that repeats all of the falsehoods of the original letter, and then adds to them. And by the way, and I'm spoilers here, a large part of this rebuttal to the FAIR takedown, the large part of the rebuttal was written by a companion out on Reddit by the name of Mithrin, who gave him tons and tons of answers to these questions if you go out and see. And then when the thing was finally published the next January, that'd be January 2014, he's applauding Mithrin and thanking him. So basically a large part of the rebuttal was ghostwritten by somebody else.
But see, good on FAIR, though, because they flushed him out. Just like we flushed out Mormon News Roundup as an anti-Mormon and not as an actual fence center.
Right.
Good job for now. FAIR forced the hands of Jeremy Runnels to behave as the overt antagonist that he has been the whole time, but at least his cover was blown. So keep going.
I've got one more slide to show you here real quick. Now, this is going back. I should have had this in a different place. But right before the last version went out, right before he sent it to the director, he said, "Let me know what you guys think before I send."
So remember, he said, I got this, a CS director reached out to me and said, "Do you have any questions?" And I opened up a Word doc and started typing. I'm quoting him.
Mm-hmm.
He says, so I opened up a Word document and I started typing. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Look at all we've been through. This is all before any of this. I mean, this is the complete opposite of what this dude is claiming. This was a myth from the very beginning.
We've put about a dozen nails in the coffin so far. Just to remind everybody, if you go in and type in CES Letter on Google, it pops up, and the text right under the title of the website says, CES Letter is one Latter-day Saint's honest quest to get official answers from the LDS Church on its troubling origins, blah, 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 blah.
Okay, that's the
It's the first sentence.
That's
the
right.
first
That's
sentence
right
in the Google
there.
search results. And it's
And
completely false.
yeah, there's a
Wow.
Okay, so I need slide 75.
So go to it, bro.
Okay.
Yeah, you're the keeper of the slides, baby.
I didn't realize. That's right.
Yeah, boom,
And
shakalaka.
as you're pulling it up, I'll hit a couple more super chats.
Awesome.
Okay,
FOG Defense says, Brittany, my daughters,
Okay, so you
Aira,
just
Faith, Ilona, Kyrene, and Marilyn say hello.
Hi, girls. Thank you for watching.
Rock on.
How do you know they were saying hello to you? Maybe they were saying hello to me, Brittany.
Because
Well,
you
they
said
addressed Brittany. I mean,
okay. I'm there.
She's the keeper of the chats. We're like, hey, Brittany, make sure you say hello to Jonah.
All right, burn through these super chats for me right now.
Polynakis 2000 says, question to Brittany, does Taylor Swift's recent endorsement of Kamala Harris leave you conflicted for this upcoming electoral decision point in November?
Wah, wah,
Whoa.
wah. I like her music.
Rock on. You go, girl. You go, girl. All right.
S'more 0530. Who knows? Maybe Jeremy will become a modern day Paul. There is always that option. I mean, there always is that opportunity.
Okay.
Then Canuto de Leon says, DNC 10925, that no weapon formed against them shall prosper, that he who diggeth a pit for them shall fall into the same himself. Great show.
All right. Thank you. Next.
Oh, dang. And then Joey Doe, antis can't stand educated members to the point where when they are concerned, they just call it your version of Mormonism because a perspective they find tolerable can't possibly have any merit. I feel like we saw an awful lot of that when the Paul brothers talked with John DeLynn, and then people are saying, this is a version of Mormonism that doesn't exist. It's like, guys, what? No, that's the version of Mormonism I believe in. Like, what? I get that people having different experiences is like hard to grasp, because I do the same thing.
Jesus argument, but lamer.
Yeah, that was part of it. But I mean, I personally, I think all humans do this. I kind of think everyone else had a similar experience to me, right? But even people in my own family who went to my same ward had a different experience with the church and ended up learning different things. So I think it's very clear that, I mean, when you hear a new version of Mormonism, recognize that the person who's telling you what they believe is probably telling you their experience. At the same time, people who are doubting or having issues, when they tell you their experience, they're probably telling you their true, real experience. In this case, with Jeremy Runnels, we're demonstrating that that's not true.
Well, once they've been radicalized.
But that doesn't mean everyone who's ever questioned the church is lying.
Once they've been radicalized, though, they have to rehearse the catechism. They can't remember any positive part of their upbringing. It has to have been all abuse and neglect and X, Y, or Z soundbite that has been popularized on ex-Mormon subreddit this week.
That is a very, very good slide into our next super chat, which is from Carden's Niceness Cocaine. It says, come here, kids. I've got the good stuff. It'll grow that Canadian hair on your chest and let you bake the greatest cake for your neighbor.
All right.
How are people this fast with creating a username?
Yeah,
that was fast.
It's like a whole new.
It's impressive.
Yeah, it's impressive. All right, last one.
And then FOG Defense says, "Fine, I've guilted the girls into saying hi, Jonah."
Oh boy, Jonah.
Hi. Oh, they love me, Brittany. Look how they love me.
Mm-hmm.
You're just so jealous. Well, now, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry to interrupt what's going on here, guys. I know we're trying to get through this, but I'm just getting news that Jeremy Runnels, this is not at the very bottom of the Discord card, and this is the second to last photograph on the Discord. Jeremy Runnels has just landed actually on the tarmac in Bosnia. He is ducking under sniper fire to bring the truth of the CES letter to the troops stationed there on the base. What a valiant sacrifice. What a brave man.
Oh, I thought he was just shaking the hands of all the other ex-Mormon subreddit minions and warriors that helped him assemble the CES
That's just
letter.
Your version of this meme, Carden.
Look, you're just misremembering this, Carden, okay? He was ducking under sniper fire to bring the snipers hired by Dallin H. Oaks. Dallin H. Oaks was on a rooftop trying to snipe Jeremy Runnels, and he was ducking under sniper fire to bring the CES letter to the faithful soldiers of ex-Mormon subreddit there in Bosnia. And we have photographic proof of this. So I'm sorry. You can continue on with the cast. I just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention.
Okay, cool. Awesome. And then Brittany, start now. You're keepers of the chats, and Brad's helping moderate. So, Mike, go.
Okay. So, as Luke just showed us, this is what's on the front page. If you'll show the slide.
Rock on.
Of the you could actually go to the website. This is what's there, and he just quoted this. So this story is the same today as it was in the beginning. Nothing has changed. Now, the Runnels response. Now, Runnels has a response for some of the things that we're talking about here. He reiterated them in the letter that he posted on Reddit on the 14th of August in response to the study, right? So he points directly to the introduction that was placed in the front of the letter. So we're going to go through this and talk about it for a minute. He quotes these words, right after telling the CES director, "I'm interested in your thoughts and answers as I've been unable to find official answers from the church for most of these issues. I'm hoping you're going to have better answers." Then Runnels wrote the following: "I'm just going to be straightforward and blunt in sharing my concerns. Obviously, I'm a disaffected member who lost his testimony, so it's no secret which side I'm on at the moment. All this information is a result of over a year of intense research and an absolute rabid obsession with Joseph Smith and church history. With this said, I'd be pretty arrogant and ignorant to say that I have all the information and that you don't have answers. Like you, I put my pants on one leg at a time and I see through a glass darkly. You may have new information and or a new perspective that I may not have heard or considered before. This is why I'm genuinely interested in what your thoughts and answers are to these troubling problems. Now, note that he doesn't ask to get his testimony restored here, but that's a side issue from what we're going to talk about. So,
sorry, after all the things that you've read, after all this evidence,
exactly.
I just can't. I'm disaffected, but maybe you have some new information that I haven't heard. He didn't say, I have been mining the internet and crowdsourcing and plagiarizing every anti-Mormon shtick I can find and throwing it into this document as a publicity stunt for a future internet persona that I'm going to create. He didn't say that.
No,
that would have been honest.
Right, and exactly true. And in the initial letter, there's no build up, there's no flashy build up, there's no lead-in quotes or anything. There's this short couple of paragraphs that we just read, and then it goes right into the Book of Mormon issues, rat-a-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat, attacking the faith, right? No holds barred attack on the faith. So what we just read collides, as Jonah just pointed out, with everything that Runnels had done for 6 months straight prior to the letter. It collides with what he was doing, as I'm going to show you in a minute, behind the scenes as he was writing this paragraph, what he was up to behind the curtain at the very hour that he wrote this, the week or two period that he was putting the final draft together and putting the introduction on the letter, collides directly with that. And then it collides directly with everything he did from the moment he sent the letter through the next 4 years. And lastly, number 4, it is totally contradicted by the text of the essay itself, which is a very no-holds-barred attack on every central truth of the restoration and a direct attack on God the Father, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Ghost, and our prophet. So, and this was done through 175 questions that are really not questions at all, because he really had no questions.
He had no question. None of this smells like a question.
That's right. And they are, right. I think of them as cudgels. Not, a question, we learned in rhetoric, if you ever took it in high school or in college, they talk about a question. A question invites an open engagement, a real question, right? You're starting a dialogue. You're interested in another perspective. But there's a whole nother use of a question in rhetoric where it's a knife. It's a tool to bash. And that's these rapid-fire questions. On one of the pages of the original edition, there are 20 questions on a single page. And in one paragraph, there's like 5 or 6 questions with no break in between. It's like there's no breath between them. But anyway, so we've got a collision going on here. And this is kind of, it's like it's almost out of time, and the author wants us just to suspend our credulity, suspend our common sense here, right? So not only, and then I went through, right, it collides directly with the 175 faith hostile questions, hard-edged church attacks that are crammed into 77 pages. And we threw in this, at face value, any English teacher reading the original essay would likely feel compelled to say, wow, the rest of your paper doesn't really match what you say in the introduction about being interested in the thoughts of the other person. Can you help me? Can you help me understand that discrepancy?
Yes.
Yeah. So this was something that stood out to me when I initially had coworkers show me the CES letter. They were like, "Hey, what's going on with this? What do you guys think?" And so they passed it around to some of the guys in the office, and I took a look at it and went home. I read it with Riley, and we started off reading into it a little bit. And when I got to the part where he started, which book is it that he does this with? I think it's with the first book of Napoleon or the Late War. I can't remember which one it is, where I look at the source of what he has used, and he has cut up from like 15 different pages out of this other book and cut up all of these pieces of the Book of Mormon to put them next to each other to look like they are saying the same thing. as I'm reading through that and recognizing what this guy is doing, I'm like, how am I supposed to take any of these questions seriously when he is willing to go to these lengths to try to make it look like the Book of Mormon is plagiarizing something else? You know, that's what stood out to me, was like, okay, all of these questions, these aren't real questions. These are questions designed to implant doubt, and as many times as possible, give me the feeling over and over again that the church is lying to me because I didn't hear about these things.
Yep.
Because guess what? No one should ever have to hear about that specific thing because it has nothing to do with the church. It's random. It's a random attack.
You saw Brad. You immediately recognized what now Michael has documented ad infinitum, right? You immediately recognized, wait a minute, this guy's lying. Like, this guy's not sincere. He's trying, it's like when Rapunzel realizes that her mother isn't actually her mother, and she's like, oh my gosh, you're a part of this. Like, you realize that the author has an ulterior motive. He's trying to tear you down. And this is what Michael has now proven definitively with this stuff.
A Rapunzel analogy? I love it, Jonah.
I have 3 little girls, so I have to know all the princesses.
I love it.
I'd like to show this slide here.
Okay, hit it, my man.
Okay,
hit it.
So,
P.S. We got about 15, 20 minutes left, my man. So let's burn, baby. Let's burn.
We'll have to burn. So what was really happening behind the scenes is he was writing this introductory paragraph we just talked about, right? On March 25th, he posted the draft and asked it for feedback, advice. He's out there honing the arguments and testing the potency of how strongly and effectively this essay meets its goal of attacking the church. And they're giving him all kinds of feedback and bows, as you'll see when you go out there and look. They're, that was the goal. And then it went out on the 20th, and the essay, just for the timeline here, the essay was written, but the author said between March 22nd and April 13th. So that's interesting, too, that the first draft went out only 3 or 4 days after he began writing. That was a weekend. So there's other questions have been raised about that.
It seems like you effectively prove that he lied about the origin of the CES letter, right? And that he lied about his intentions. It seems pretty obvious. And that he also lied about whether or not this was part of his journey or was the capstone of his radicalization.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, do we have to burn through the rest of these slides, or can we also just start asking you some questions about this research?
Yeah, you can just start asking questions, sure. And
who does your research, actually, I'll ask one question, and then you guys can, we can choose whether or not we just finish these slides or we start asking about how well the research is received. But I'm curious.
We want time for people to be able to ask you questions, Mike. So.
Yes, exactly. Sure. So, who is your research helping? Because, honestly, I'm kind of frustrated in this live stream a little bit because it's kind of like, finally, they're saying what we've been saying for a decade.
Yep.
It's almost frustrating that when me and Brad were saying this, oh my gosh, Saints Unscripted was bending over backwards to defend Jeremy Runnels and basically do a puff piece on him. And everybody was calling us up saying, how dare you be so cruel and ad hominem and all this other crap. Meanwhile, you use sharper rhetoric than we did, but because it's in a PowerPoint slide and you've got white hair, now all of a sudden it's not ad hominem or what? Frankly, I just
he brought the receipts. He brought the receipts.
We did too.
Don't make fun of white hair. Don't make fun of white hair. I heard that.
No, but I'm saying how much of this is just garbage optics, because we had receipts, Brad. I mean,
we had some. We didn't have this many, right?
Yeah. Well, okay, fine. So, so 3 receipts was not enough to establish a pattern. Oh, if we would have had 5, then they wouldn't have called us ad hominem, and niceness culture wouldn't have come after us.
I think there was a reluctance because in our culture, there's this idea of our own private personal story. It's very sacred ground, right? You can criticize a lot of things, but you can't criticize my story. Unfortunately, in this situation, the story was the centerpiece of the brand that, Runnels was a professional online marketer.
And this is the premise of the Mormon Stories podcast, his counterpart, that says, if I just tell a bunch of anti-Mormon anecdotes, you can't go against my lived story and my journey and my doubts, because you're supposed to help out with doubts.
But then we find out what the real story was, and that it was used to persuade. It was used to bring people into that territory where damage could be done, and was intentionally attempted against their faith. So Sarah Allen said, who did a major takedown of the letter, she said, all of what we've discussed tonight, it helps gauge the truthfulness of the document itself.
Now, have you gotten a bunch of calls from people getting angry that you published something calling into question whether or not Jeremy Runnels was disingenuous? Brad got a buttload of calls. Kwaku and I got a buttload of calls.
They're probably coming after tonight, I imagine.
Yeah, and that might be part of it, right, Cardin? Now that he's releasing it on a channel where we're actually talking about it and it's getting out there in a more popular setting, this is where it's going to end up in the circles that end up calling out. Like we had people in the chat today saying, wow, you're being so mean to Jeremy Runnels by reading things he said online, right? Like, I don't know what to say. And so maybe it's coming.
Well, also, I think, give yourself some credit, Brad. You, Kwaku, Midnight Mormons, Word Radio, we changed the dialogue. Like now, I think there's more. There's more cover for like Stick of Joseph to go on John DeLand. They had a Ward Radio to retreat to where they could give their version of the story. When all of the ex-Mormon, anti-Mormon subreddit minions were coming after us, nobody was helping us out. They were throwing us under the bus and trying to run to their corners to virtue signal about how, they didn't think it was appropriate or Christ-like. There were some people that came to our defense. I mean, it wasn't an absolute bloodbath. But now you actually have Stick of Joseph being able to get defended in multiple forums that many of them were spurred into action because they saw what we were doing. So, I mean, I'm happy to hear that now there's Michael Petersons out here who are getting the ear of BYU studies and getting published by a Public Square magazine. These are all the people that were throwing us under the bus. So I'm glad to hear that they've changed their tune. At the same token, though, I'm kind of like, well, you're late to the party. Like, where were you?
Also, an apology wouldn't hurt.
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
but one thing I do want to say though, we were pretty bombastic in what we did, and it was a very effective way of maybe showing people how to do it wrong. And so it galvanized other people into being like, hey, I don't like how they did it, so I'm gonna go and do it better, the way I think is better, right?
Was like reverse psychology.
Dude, it was hilarious, bro.
I don't think it was wrong. Awesome. I think it was avant-garde.
Yeah, I would not go so far as to say it was wrong too, because don't forget,
which
bro.
is French for wrong.
Yeah. Well, don't forget.
Fancy way of saying it was fancy.
French for wildly inappropriate.
Well, no, not wildly inappropriate, because what everybody forgets is Fair Mormon approved every script. They approved everything before it was released.
I was in those
It wasn't until afterward when all of a sudden all of the virtue signalers wanted to find virtue to signal, and all of the anti-Mormons that know that they can leverage my doubts and so on. It's not until they threw the spaghetti against the wall and saw which soundbite stuck, and they realized, oh man, if we say that we're disheartened, we were about to go back to church until we saw this is the show, well, that'll really work on grandma. And then once they started doing that, that's when everybody ran to their corners. They're cowards. These people are cowards. And
I think there's definitely elements of that are true, Cardin, but I think that maybe the biggest thing going against This Is the Show was the fact that it was put out on Fair Mormon's channel, where there was a tonal dissonance, right?
Yes.
Where people are used to very
sterile
simple presentations.
Academics.
Yeah. And then we came out swinging with a comedy show, right? And so,
which was not my advice.
Yes.
Naming it This Is the Show was not.
I remember that meeting.
Yep, I remember that meeting well.
Whatever. It was awesome. It was perky. It was awesome. Everybody loved it.
Perky?
Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to interrupt. It cleaved right to the issues. It just really busted through those myths.
I have
a great show.
an even better one I could say,
so-
but I'm not going to say it.
But
And
I'm so sorry
I'm instead going to take it back to this report, because there was something in here that I just found so interesting. Because so far we've proven that he was not the disaffected member, the earnest seeker of truth.
Right.
But we haven't.
He was
I don't think
disaffected,
we
but he
haven't
was not
quite
the seeker
given
of truth.
the receipts of he was intending this to be. I mean, you can imply it pretty easily, but we don't have the direct receipts so far. And as I read through this document, I noticed this interaction that he had with somebody after the letter was published. And what's fascinating to me with this is it sounds just like the conversations that Jacob Hansen and I had when we were preparing our debate for Trent Horn.
Well, he admitted
when Jacob was preparing his debate for Trent Horn, he had this interaction with somebody on I'm assuming this is Reddit. Somebody said that he should have started with Joseph Smith.
Right.
That's the first thing that's so fascinating is, you should have started by attacking the origin story of it.
And then explain how he responded. Tell how he responded to that.
And so Jeremy responds and said, Joseph Smith this and Joseph Smith that can easily be dismissed in the TBM, True Believing Mormon's mind as, quote, anti-Mormon lies. I felt starting out with Joseph Smith would doom my letter from the start. Why? Because if I was going to have somebody read 75 pages, I needed them to get hooked immediately.
Right, and he had already
just told us what the audience is.
Exactly. And
I don't need the CES director to get hooked on this. I intentionally crafted it with. I recognize that Joseph Smith is the best line of attack to start with, but they're going to be so used to that the Book of Mormon is the second best one, and so I'm going to stick King James Ayres and Book of Mormon translation first instead of different First Visions accounts, because then that will throw them off and it will hook them in because they won't know what they're reading. So it's fascinating because it both, number one, irrefutably proves what he was writing this letter for, but number two, shows the importance of going after the origin story of some sort of mythos in order to take it down, which is ironically what we're throwing back at him right now.
Okay. All right.
Well said, Luke.
I don't know how any reasonable person could watch through our podcast up to this point and see the evidence that Mike has put together here and come away from it thinking that Jeremy Runnels was not dishonest about the way that he presented this letter.
Yes, and when you talk about the audience, which, Luke, you're talking about there, who it was really targeted at, 6 days after the release of the letter, in a sidebar conversation on Reddit, he interjected, "I didn't write this for the CES guy."
Wait, repeat that?
I didn't write this for the CES guy.
Ooh.
He said, "I didn't write this for the CES guy."
And then he goes on to talk
for my kids.
For my kids
who
who
one day going to ask their dad why he left the faith.
Yeah, that's what he said. I didn't write this.
Oh, yeah, but that's just him trying to wax poetic in the typical self-congratulatory way that they always do in their Facebook posts that are like a telephone pole.
But it
was all a lie. The whole thing was a lie.
But he went on to say, as you know, in the next year and a half, he said, the target audience are the fence sitters. The quote that you just did, the quote that you just talked about, Luke, we show in the footnotes there that was plural. He tried to say that was the director, but we were able to show with his own language he was talking in plural about the members of the church, active members of the church. That's who he was going for, TBMs, and this was meant to have a broad-based audience from day one. So the evidence is right there.
Already agreed to hear your concerns. You don't need to write it in a way that's going to hook them and make them keep reading. They already agreed to read what you're going to send them. It doesn't make any sense.
And most members of the church have a beloved feeling, most active members, for the Book of Mormon. So to put the Book of Mormon in there up front and immediately start making whispers against it was a tremendous hook for people that aren't super grounded, right? And so he leads them step by step. That's why he didn't want to use Joseph Smith first, because that's what everybody does, right? They start attacking the prophet Joseph's character, and it's immediately recognized as a bunch of anti-Latter-day Saint junk, right? So, but that didn't, in this case, he's trying to lure you in. He's trying to get you in, and you see this also on his website. We don't have time for that. I can make this a little more concise here.
Let's hit it.
Let me do that. I'll help you out here.
Okay.
I'll help you out greatly, Carden. So yeah, he's number 4. He made public statements revealing a much broader intended audience. He revealed it. Number 5, textual similarities mirror other published dissidents. Please read that section. It talks about him lifting material from other writers and then taking a hostile, disparaging tone in the original essay. That's number 6. Immediately promoting and personally disseminating the letter online, and then over a period of years, and then disparaging attitudes and manipulative actions toward local church leaders. That's 15 pages that go through all these meetings with the church where you start to see what was really going on behind the scenes. And not once in any of those meetings did he just have a heart-to-heart conversation about, I've got these issues. Will you help me get my testimony back? We have public records that demonstrate that never happened. And then number 9, excessive and ongoing branding expansion efforts over subsequent years. So he took that shiny wrapper, branded it, and then continued to expand it. We don't have time to go into all that interesting stuff. And then the last one...
Those are his own words, that it's his own brand.
That's right. And he said that online. Somebody started using CES Letter in some of their own writings, and he corrected them, and we have the actual Reddit post where he said, don't do that. That is my brand tied to my own name.
Wow.
Now, number 10 is employing malicious personal attacks upon anyone who dared to disagree. And I think we're out of time, but there's a slide in here, there's a quote in here that you want to go look at.
Pull it up.
Well, it's going to take me a minute to do that, but I can do it.
Okay.
Oh my gosh! Wow,
I have got a killer slide. So you guys,
Jonah.
I'll look it up.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm just receiving some news here, guys. This is breaking news here.
Okay.
The final photograph in the Discord. Jeremy Runnels' cat has been kidnapped. Jeremy Runnels' cat has been kidnapped. We don't know where it is, but we have photographic proof that Brittany Ellis.
That's disgusting.
Jeremy Runnels' cat. Brittany Ellis, you see it right here. She's consuming, she's eating.
I literally
this poor
would
innocent
never.
cat. She has
Oh my
the Light
gosh.
and Truth letter, the Light and Truth letter on the bed behind her. She stopped from reading the Light and Truth letter, and she's eating this poor helpless cat. Okay? Now you see it with your own eyes. Okay? We have the news here at Ward Radio. Brittany, you should be ashamed of yourself. You should be ashamed of yourself.
Still not as bad as Luke. Still not as bad as Luke.
Yeah,
I'm
Luke,
getting hungry,
I
guys.
can't
When
get
is this
over
live stream going to be over?
Yeah, for real. Okay, so
Jonah, it's a war.
Okay, so guys,
I'm making
I got
memes
it now.
next
I got
time.
it. I found it.
Okay, so hold on a second. Brittany, catch us up on the super chats over the next 2 minutes. Then we're going to toss back to Michael. And then, guys, if you have any questions for Michael Peterson, who is the researcher du jour, the researcher par excellence, who those are 2 totally unrelated French terms. You know what I'm saying? If you have any questions for him, send them to us in super chat. Make sure they're concise, make sure they're simple, and we will try and give him 5 minutes to respond here at the end. So, Brittany, go.
Okay, Fog Defense says a new perspective. Yeah, it's called The Truth.
Oof.
Yeah.
Rough. Okay.
PJ says, I want to see the Journey link in real time, Carden.
Okay. The Journey link? I don't know what he's
On
talking
the
about.
the CES letter where you click on the journey and it goes to the truth and light.
Oh, yeah, that already got fixed from what I understand. So, yeah, you have to go back to our last live stream. That was funny.
Fog Defense, again, says the phrase Carden's looking for Runnels is bad faith actor.
Yes,
Yep,
definitely a
there
bad
it is.
faith actor. Yes.
Sean Grover, I just finished reading Austin Fife's Light and Truth letter. Highly recommended for solid answers to the disingenuous CES letter questions.
Yes, this is a bad month for the CES letter and John DeLynn with some serious, not just rebuttals, but proofs, shall we say, of disingenuous behavior and bad faith acting. Yes. Keep going.
Rex Good says, just saying, never heard of CES letter, Mormon stories, or John DeLynn before I found Midnight Mormons free advertising.
Okay, well, if you were
Or it was only a matter
normie,
of
fine.
time,
both
and now
ways.
you have better defenses against it.
I've heard people say like, oh, watch out for the Streisand effect. You're gonna point people to the very thing that you're worried about. I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah, we should stop vaccinating our kids too.
Well, yeah,
You
we
know,
should.
Like the thing is,
Actually, we should.
we are telling people about
No,
the
don't say that on
CES
YouTube.
letter and about John DeLynn. so that they know what they're dealing with when they run into it, right? Because I think if people are aware of what they're dealing with when they run into it, they're not going to get sucked into this.
Yep.
That's right.
Yep, it's true. Yeah, go read it.
Yeah, if
Everybody,
you want to take
go
it
read the
seriously
CS
after this, then like it's out of our hands.
Yeah, right.
You do you.
Everybody go read the CES letter and then go read the Light and Truth letter. Go for it. We want everybody to know. Go read the fake hoax of the CES letter designed to destroy your testimony and your family, and then go read the Light and Truth letter. I actually happen to know Austin Fife personally. I know his history, and I know that his story is 100% legit, that he really did have a faith crisis, and he really did struggle with this for 10 years and come back. So
yeah, and by the way, I believe that Runnels did have a faith crisis. It was just way further back than what he portrayed. Yeah.
Yes,
and he was way beyond the searching stage. He was just so far beyond that, long before he actually penned the piece.
Okay, interesting. Okay, keep going. So, Brittany, are we all caught up in super chats?
I think there's one more. Gidgedonut. Is that how you say it?
Gidgedonut. Okay.
Gidgedonut. So these collective contributors and editors, are they called the CES pool, the cesspool?
Oh, I get it. I see what you did there, Gidgedonut.
Oh, and then did we miss the one from Sean Grover?
Nope, hit it.
He said, I just finished reading Austin Fife's Light and Truth letter. Highly recommend.
I already read that one, Brad.
You did?
Oh, sorry. I thought you meant Joey Doe. P.S. Nemo is finally in disciplinary council. Yep. That's what he has announced, apparently. I haven't seen any paperwork, but sure. I don't doubt it.
I'd seen someone sent something that showed that he has the disciplinary council, but it hasn't happened yet, right?
Yeah, I want to call his poor stake president and say, look, dude, you got to prep for this. He's going to record every single thing you say. He's going to try and launch this. And like, you need to prep everybody in the high council to be on ex-Mormon subreddit. Every single thing they say, you can request that he doesn't record it, but his livelihood depends upon that recording.
Don't share any of your personal experiences to try and help him.
Yes. Like, you literally need to go in there and... whatever advocating part or whatever, just like we need to figure, like the church really does need to adjust its protocols for this, for the new wave of people that profit off of this. Like Jeremy Runnels. I mean, guys, he records his stake president, then rage quits on his stake president, who was actually smart and kind of stayed stoic in the video, and then goes out to the parking lot where there's loudspeakers, a DJ, and music blaring to welcome their hero who just got excommunicated. Let me tell you, that stake presidency got B-slapped because they should have kicked everybody off the property that was having, you know what I'm saying, that was setting up an
they would have just
Exmo
recorded
party.
that, Carden.
No, it should have happened before. If they didn't see this coming, shows that they were so detached from the internet, they were unfit for leadership of a group as large as a stake. I do not think you can be illiterate of 20th century internet culture and be in charge of leading a group that big. Like when we had to cross the plains.
No, Carden. It's a good thing that we have that video of Runnels out there. It shows how bad faith of an actor he is. I prefer that it's out there, you know?
Yeah,
I'm not saying it should be suppressed. I'm saying we need better leadership that sees these things coming.
This is different warfare, and I hope that Nebo the Mormons priesthood leaders know he will try to record you. He will try to record you, like every which way he can. This is all about his narcissism. This is all about his channel.
This is asymmetrical warfare, dude. This is not.
Be prepared.
Yes.
Okay, we have 3 more super chats.
Okay, hit it.
Okay, Brandon Cole says, best to arm everyone with the truth now rather than hope that they'll never come across or fall victim to the antagonistic gossip mongering. That's a big reason why Ward Radio is so valuable.
Okay.
Amen.
Awesome. Next one.
Polly Nikes, question for Jonah. Here you go, Jonah. Do you have evidence that CIA enhanced interrogation techniques include reading the CES letter aloud to detainees?
Actually, funny you should say that. In the Discord card, we have photographic proof.
What?
The CES letter, just right there in the Discord, if you just pull up that last photograph, the CES letter being used as a quite an effective enhanced interrogation technique right there for your very eyes. Thank you for the question. That was a perfect setup. We appreciate it.
Did you super chat yourself just as an excuse to talk
No, it's
about a
from Polly
meme that you made?
Nikes. From
That's
Polly
Polly
Nikes.
Nikes, man. We have a little telepathy thing going on. Me and Polly.
Wow.
All right, dude.
Fog Defense says Nemo being in Britain can be charged criminally if he records his disciplinary counsel.
Shut up, man.
Oh.
I gotta say, as much as I think it is, it's cruel and disingenuous for him to do that. The UK free speech laws are beyond Orwellian. Like, they are beyond Orwellian. In America, we fight over whether or not it's a single party posting state. Out there, they throw you in prison. So,
Well, I for one welcome our new overlords.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Just saying.
Thank you, Brad.
And get double boosted. So, all right. Quadruple. All right. You ready to go? Wrap this thing up?
Absolutely.
Okay. Hit it, my man.
Okay, I just want to make a point about number 8, since that came up just now. Disparaging attitudes and manipulative actions toward local church leaders. Now, one of the things that the pages I told you about, the 15 pages that cover all of these meetings, bring out is that this stake president was actually a wonderful, competent, strong leader and very, very inspired. And yet the author disparaged him. It was going, outside of these meetings and online in some pretty awful ways. And one of the things that we were hopeful that in uncovering the truth about what really took place in those meetings, and to have that public smear taken away a bit, right, by the actual truth of what this man was really like. The stake president was what you would expect in a really wonderfully inspired and loving stake president who spent most of his time in the meetings just listening to Runnels as he debated all of these things and threw the same arrows at the stake president that he threw in the CES letter. That's really all that was going on there. So anyway, we just talked about employing malicious personal attacks upon anyone who dared to disagree. That's number 10. If you'll want to pull the slide, I'll wrap this up.
Cool, hit it.
Yeah, that's number 10. Now, how did he do that? Well, anybody who really made a real effort to rebut the letter, they were given a name, a nickname, and their pictures were put on his website, and then he mocks and pillories them. And this is an example, right? Dan Peterson is Danny Boy and Taper Dan. He's got a name for Quakuel. And
what's Quakuel's name? Gotta hear it.
Well, you can see it. It's right there on the slide.
Unsavory troll.
Unsavory troll. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's weak
The
sauce.
lamest one.
Okay. Now,
That's not true at all. Quaku's a very savory troll.
now he really had an issue.
Delicious.
He had a real issue with FAIR, as you can see. He's saying some stuff that we can't print about FAIR. But this is the way he responds to people who really, and those who are researching his background, he has accused them several times of stalking him.
Oh, of course. Well, he called the FBI on Kwaku for posting a meme. Don't forget. Now,
Yeah.
we don't know if that's true.
Right.
But he said he did, so.
Now, this last slide I want to show you. It's interesting as you look at the Reddit dialogue over the years, right? 2013 to 2017. There occasionally somebody calls him out on Exmo Reddit and says, you didn't really sound like somebody who was really sincere that wanted to get answers. You sounded like somebody who was, this is among the group of people who are attacking the faith. And they grew weary of Runnels' shtick over the years. And I thought this was summarized quite well by this posting, if you want to show the slide, from I'm Superman on August 25th, 2021. He says, looking at Jeremy's history, in my view, there definitely was a false frame story being told by the letter, that of a sincere doubter just looking for answers, which is belied by the actual facts and adversarial tone of the letter. If someone tells me a false story about themselves in order to give credence to their approach, my radar goes off and I tread with caution. So
Wow.
I have, but notice who this is coming from, right? And Runnels reacted, he reacted volcanically to I am Superman. A lot of unprintable stuff, and just the subtext was, or what do you call that? A meta message was, don't mess with me, right? Or I'm gonna try to take you down. So
narcissists always have the thinnest skin.
yeah. So and just like he says here, my radar goes off and I tread with caution. I've compared that to, we get sold a lot of things at the door, right? Someone will come to the door, and imagine a person comes and they're charming. They've got a great story about their purpose, You're sympathizing with that person. You invite them barely inside the door, right?
Brad.
There's an anteroom there. We sit there in the anteroom, and now he's starting even to sound even more appealing. And so I take him down the hall right into the living room, and he's sitting right across from me on the sofa. And then over the course of time, I discover that this whole surrounding story by which he got into my living room was false. And the question then is that not going to color everything he says thereafter?
Yeah, and lest anyone think that we're only talking about Jeremy Runnels because we can't answer the questions asked in the CES letter, don't worry. We'll be doing episodes that answer those things. They've
been debunked ad nauseum.
Now,
and
it's like trying to debunk the Rothschild conspiracy of banking. Like, do we really need to do an episode on that, or is the Daily Stormer just wrong?
And we'll go over more of the Light and Truth letter, and we'll go over more of these things that have clear answers. There are answers to the CES letter anywhere you care to look. If you want to find those answers, you can. And we can do more content if you guys want. Let us know if that's something you guys would be interested in.
Michael specifically brought research about the origin story myth. That's what he focused his research on. Not on the content of the letter, but on the generation of it, the genesis of it, which is heralded. And Luke Hansen has a great point. To all you ex-Mos, all you anti-Mos in the chat, do you think discrediting Joseph Smith would have bearing on the truth claims of the church? Yeah, it would.
Jeremy Runnels seems to think so.
Yeah, Jeremy Runnels seems to think so. And so showing that Jeremy Runnels was a liar from the beginning should perhaps color your perception of the rest of the CES letter.
How
Don't
about
you think?
I just read a little bit of the CES letter? Because Jeremy seems to think these contradictory stories of the origin story of something are rather important, because he has a whole section on first vision accounts and goes through all of them. And then he ends with this paragraph. He says, as with the Rock and the Hat story, I did not know there are multiple first vision accounts. I did not know of their contradictions, or that the church members did not know about a first vision until 12 to 22 years after it supposedly happened. I was unaware of these omissions in the mission field, as I was never taught or trained in the missionary training center to teach investigators these facts. So we could just very well as easily say, as with the Jeremy Runnels crowdsourcing the CES letter story, I did not know that he had, I could switch all of these words that he put in the CES letter around to say all these things I didn't know about the CES letter origin story, and now I'm losing my faith in the truth claims of the CES letter origin story. And it's the exact same logic, people. And it's actually somewhat valid logic.
Yeah. So I got a couple of questions here really fast. Please just kind of rapid fire. Give me what kind of the fastest answers you can.
Sure.
I would say, what are the top 2 or 3 things that you found in your research that really surprised you in your debunking that most people do not know was a lie in the CES letter?
In the letter itself, or in the story?
In the origin story of it. Like, what are the top 3 things that people don't realize when you're explaining your research that really makes them say, what?
Right. It's what we went over with the amount of activity online prior to writing, and the fact that he was in that category of people that are just openly attacking the church, and then this idea that in one day he flipped, right, and now he's a sincere seeker after truth. That's one of the biggest right there. And then the fact that turns out that the CES director thing that was brought into this, or the person happened into his life, that was quite powerful for a lot of people.
Did you ever talk to? Oh, sorry.
And then the other one was the branding. One of the academics that I talked to, a PhD author who read the study, said the thing that offended him the most was the amount of branding that was done over the years of the original origin story, and that this lie was repeating itself over and over again, and is still right there on the front upper fold of the website today. That was one of the biggest offenses. Okay.
Did you reach out to Jeremy Runnels himself in the process of doing your investigation?
No.
This is all just open source information you were able to glean from his social media activities.
That's right.
Interesting. Okay. Would you, if you had a chance to talk to him and ask him questions, is there anything in specifically you'd want to ask him that you don't feel you're able to find in open source information?
I would want to know because he talks about this total transparency. He had a private Facebook group that he was working with and talking to about all of this right before he wrote the letter, or right as he was writing the letter. And I would ask him if he'd be willing to release the communications that went on in that private anti-Latter-day Saint Facebook group.
Wait, so you're saying he's hiding history?
Yeah, and I would also ask, because of the way he came aboard in 2012, and the audience seemed to know him. They didn't challenge him like they do a lot of people. You have to earn your stripes a bit when you're out on Exmo Reddit, and they seemed to know who he was. So perhaps he could tell us. I would ask him, what were the pseudonyms that you went under before you were Kolobot?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So those would be a couple of things that I would ask.
Do you guys got any questions for him? Does the chat have any questions for him? Let's hit it. We got 5 minutes left.
Okay, I have one more wrap-up thing I'd like to say, too.
Okay, say it.
Okay, so there's a happy note that, as I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of Latter-day Saints who have come back who were deeply affected by the CES letter, who are active, who are in sacrament meeting, who are attending the temple and love the gospel of Jesus Christ. Stephen Murphy's one of them right here. He says, I had the CES letter memorized, but coming back to church felt like I was spiritually home. I couldn't get around or over those spiritual experiences. And there's a thread that runs through most of these stories that you see on Saints Unscripted and the Comeback podcast, that they had a personal experience with Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ and the Holy Ghost that was separate from their study, and it caused them to now begin looking at faithful sources and other, starting to look at things a little bit differently in the process. And the Book of Mormon played a major role in almost every reconversion to the gospel after the CES, letter experience. And I'm not going to read them all, but a really good one to read that I would recommend everybody go out and look at is Bridger Coburn's story on Saints Unscripted. If you type in Saints Unscripted and Bridger Coburn, he tells the story of what the CES letter did to him, how he began to come back after attending church with his wife. He was just asked by her to come to a stake conference, and he's sitting in the stake conference and he's feeling the Spirit. And this is at an hour when he wanted nothing to do with the gospel or anything. And so there was a dissonance that happened, right? So he started going back and studying even more. He had studied a lot, but now he's looking at faithful sources. He's comparing the CES letter with its rebuttals, and then he got angry because he saw that he had been misled by the material that's inside the letter. But I've kind of given spoilers on that too, but that would be another one to take a look at. But just know that this is not... There's an opportunity for everyone to return. It's a wonderful thing when people come back.
And relevant to that, the last thing that I'll say, in the Discord, there's one more photo card that you can pull up here.
Okay.
That's apropos to our discussion. So this is a photograph of the original manuscript of the Book of Mormon, which I got to see in the Church History Library in Salt Lake City. My testimony that the church is true is based off of the impossible miracle that is the Book of Mormon, that no one, not 100 Tolkiens in 100 years, could possibly write that document. And yet Joseph Smith somehow sat down and just stream of consciousness out this thing with no edits, no strike-throughs, no changes to the document at all. It's a miracle imprint. You don't have to have a PhD. You can look at this document and see this stream of consciousness with no changes at all and say, that shouldn't happen. That can't happen. That's impossible. It's a miracle, and it was revealed through the power of God. So anybody out there who's struggling with their testimony because of the nasty things that Jeremy Runnels has put out there, don't listen to us. Don't listen to Jeremy. You can read the Book of Mormon, and you can know for yourself. God hasn't made us your mediator or Jeremy your mediator or anybody. And you can find out for yourself that the Book of Mormon is absolutely an authentic ancient document, and it's proof that Joseph Smith was a prophet.
All right, awesome. Any final words, my man? We'll end on that. Any final words, Michael, before we go?
I think we're good.
Nothing. We're good. All right, Brad, Luke, anybody? Nothing? Okay.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Jonah said. I think that the Book of Mormon is an incredible document. It is definitely misrepresented in the CES letter. And if you want answers to those questions, sincere answers to those questions, there are actually a lot of very helpful sources about this. One of my favorites is Mormoner. If you go to mormoner.org, you can find stuff where people will throw out things like, oh, well, Joseph Smith had multiple accounts of the first vision, like you were saying earlier, Luke. You can see all of those primary source documents on mormoner.org. There's a quick Q&A format that helps you understand the context of those if you want, or you can just go directly into the overlays on the sources of all of them, and you can go straight to the sources there.
One of the other things that was in those stories about the Book of Mormon, like you're talking about here, was that it brought those individuals to Christ and probably closer to the Savior than they'd ever been in their lives. And they're talking about how they're back in the church after all of these experiences, this negative stuff, and they feel closer to heaven and to the Savior than they've ever felt in their lives. And their testimonies are stronger than ever. So, I mean, that's the part that is not widely known, right? The number of people who are doing that and are coming back.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I love that. I love that you bring that up, because the Book of Mormon leads people to Christ. It is another testament of Jesus Christ, just like it says. It brings us closer to Christ. It's brought me closer to Christ and helps us understand our relationship with our Father in heaven. Again, if you have questions, you can always ask. You can reach out to us on like Facebook, Instagram. You can reach out to us and see if there's anything we can do to help. Mormoner.org is incredible. It's got stuff on the translation of the Book of Mormon. It has stuff about the Book of Mormon and the view of the Hebrews. Probably the best document on that I've ever seen. All sorts of stuff that can answer any of these questions if you are sincerely looking to understand these issues, and if you have sincere questions here.
Yeah. Awesome, guys. Well, like we say in every live stream, it's been real and it's been fun. It's been real fun.
Thank you.
For this and more, please make sure you check us out at wardradio.com.
Thank you.
I built a rocket in my basement. I'm gonna fly it to the moon. This supersonic is amazing. You're gonna feel my sonic boom. I'm flying higher and I'm never coming down. Look at me now. Look at me now. Look at me. We brought the funk into this function. We show up dressing to the nines. Okay. Never need an introduction. No matter what, we're feeling fine. I'm flying high and I'm never coming down. Look at me now. Look at me now. Look at me now. Look at me now. Can't stop.